trying to get our hands around what we think the budget, what the revenues and expenses will be next year, and where we stand coming out of this year. You know, and we're just trying to collect that information so that we can get started before we have any discussions on, you know, nice to haves or want to haves. So I think that's how I would phrase it. We're just at the point of getting started, and
Yes.
we would,
Yeah.
we're hoping to work on this continually. You go on, Joanne.
So basically what I recall from the meeting is that we had Lori give us an idea of where the revenues have come in so far and try to break it down by quarters, because we know that COVID didn't affect the first quarter, didn't really affect the property taxes for the second quarter, because that's when ours came in. It may have affected the school property tax, and Lori may have gotten that information since then, because that was just due last Friday. So we may have a little bit more information than what we had at the last council meeting. And she was looking at, and we asked her to look at the EITs, the earned income tax, to see where that was coming from. So we're basically at that meeting just looking at revenue and then trying to figure out how to estimate what I think we might have next year, since this is such an unusual 2021 that we're going to be having.
The other thing, Joanne, is I think she said there is no wish list this year from anybody. Usually she puts out a memo asking what sort of purchases they might like to purchase this year. And I think that's at 0 for every department.
Well, I told them that it had to be wants, or needs, not wants.
Yeah.
So if they have a need, then that's one thing, but there's no wants next year. It has to be, I really need it. So I've gotten one list so far from Bob at the sewer plant. I haven't gotten any others yet. So
one of the things that we should remember is the
I just add, you know,
police training that the governor's, I don't know if there's any money following that. I doubt it, but we may have additional trainings that we haven't had before. I'm not sure. I'd have to talk with Sean, but those mandates that came out in July, I think, from the governor's office for police training and screenings and all that kind of thing, they're probably going to cost us some money.
yeah,
We get
Sean,
some
I haven't
numbers.
gotten Sean's numbers yet. So hopefully he'll include that in his numbers, Tom, if he has to have additional training. But we can kind of remind him to include that.
Yeah, I will.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So
I guess
Lori, do you want to bring the whole council up to speed as to where we're at this point?
We're not too bad with our revenues. Dawn and I were just talking at the end of the day today, and as of the end of August, which is the numbers that you have, we're actually doing relatively well. Everybody's been doing pretty good at keeping their expenses down. So I haven't run the numbers as of the end of September yet because it's only the 5th, but as of the end of August, I was pretty pleased with how things were. Ralph and Dawn had requested that the guys really cut back, and they really have. So I think we're doing pretty well, things considered.
I just, you know, recap that our revenues are primarily taxes and water, sewer, refuse, utility payments. So, you know, those payments support the different funds and the different employee departments. But as Lori said, generally things have looked pretty good. You know, we have it documented through for the August report But we did check with the school district, and they won't know probably till sometime in October, if there's a significant drop off in their collections. We're waiting to hear that, whether they did or did not. But we, in our finance committee meeting, I think the overall tone was, to approach next year very conservatively, just because there's still a lot of uncertainty. There's no vaccine, there's a lot of uncertainty with our revenue streams. And, if there's a significant downturn in the economy, it's going to affect our revenues. I think a lot of the federal money has come and gone, the CARES Act funding and those kinds of funding programs that either help the business or the employee. They're out and about, but there is some on the radar, but I don't think it's going to continue much longer. So our thoughts are, the best way to approach next year would be conservatively. As Lori said, we're just trying to look at just the needs. What do we have in the pipeline that makes sense to finish, and try to get something finished versus starting something new. And we can talk about some general things that we have ideas about, but that's the message is we're going to approach the budget season in a conservative manner, trying just to look at what has to be done for next year. And that goes across the board, whether it's a project or a personnel expense. We're trying to look at some openings that we have and when to backfill and those kinds of things. If we can delay a little bit, I think we're going to into 2021. That would allow us to get caught up a little bit on some of the expenses related to retirement that we have seen starting this year. So we had planned to try to get caught up in some of those areas. So the way we would do that is not to backfill immediately, but at some point, later in the year or beyond. So we, internally, we're looking at the different funds, the different services that we offer. The refuse department, I think, comes to mind. We had an employee leave our employment. So we're looking at, probably not backfilling one position. Water, sewer, we're seeing retirements in those areas. We'll delay backfilling, and in the sewer area. The water, we have to evaluate what to do. We're losing an employee there through retirement. Streets, we're losing 2 employees through retirement. So again, we're going to look at what can we do short term and those kinds of things that would be beneficial and still allow us to, get work done and get things done that we need to get done. The smaller funds like the parks fund and seasonal labor, there's expenses, but not as high as expenses as you would see with the full-time employees and those, the other departments. So that's what we're looking at right now. What can we get by with? When can we backfill? Could we do anything as far as, maybe something temporary to fill positions or help each other out in the different departments, looking at all those different options.
I would just chime in, as Ralph is talking about being conservative, I think one of the things that the finance committee is going to have to wrestle with is, and this is for the full council, is where Lori estimates revenue coming in, primarily in the general fund. If the two major sources of funding come from, real estate taxes and earned income tax, and we really won't know where we are with real estate taxes until probably May or June or sometime like that. Same thing, EIP's even a little bit later. So typically, Lori has always estimated real estate maybe at 92% return rate. And then if we get more than that, then, that gives us a little bit of a cushion. So the thing that the committee is, considering is, do we keep the same rate or do we go down maybe 1% or 2% and think about 88% return and start our revenue there? Which if we were to do that, that's going to probably have the general fund it's going to be so tight that you all are going to have to make some really difficult decisions on perhaps where to think about cutting some things. Ralph's already pointed out that on terms of personnel, we're going to be bare bones in probably public works all the way through April.
The one thing that we did talk about, and I don't know if this was in human resources or in the finance committee, these kind of get blurred for me, was a look at forward looking for transfer as probably Don, could be Ralph, transition out to retire. We need to make some kind of movement forward, and that would include trying to hire someone. And what we were thinking of was hiring a zoning, planning, HARB person who would then also meanwhile be trained as a manager over time, so that once that transition does occur, we've got somebody who's trained and on board that can easily step in. And that would be part of I would say the needs budget for next year.
I agree. We've been talking about a succession plan and something we would encourage council to look at. We think it'd be beneficial. As Joanne pointed out, we'd like to have somebody wear multiple hats, as we say. Part of the time would be dedicated to planning and zoning and possibly HARB, but the other part of the time would be related to learning the borough management rules, the activities, the administration part of borough government. We think that would be beneficial. Don's estimating probably 3 to 4 years by the time he retires. So we would like to get somebody in place. As you know, this year I've been filling in and Don's been my backup for planning and zoning and HARB, and it's kept me extremely busy. It's made me less efficient. And I don't want to go on like that into 2021. I don't think I'm doing a good service as my time is spread too thin. And I think at minimum, we would need to hire a part-time planning, zoning, HARB person, or 2, depending on their backgrounds and their interests. But I think there's an opportunity to bring on somebody full-time and start them in the training mode and learning mode, with myself and Dawn. And then when Dawn retires, they would move up to the assistant borough manager position. And then at that time, we would backfill to a part-time planning, zoning person, possibly HARB person. So for a few years, there'd be a little increase in the overall general administration costs. But if you go back through time, we had a full-time planning, zoning person. We've had a full-time person in the office. We're still down. We're still down compared to where we used to be. But we think it's highly advantageous, highly beneficial to transfer some of the institutional knowledge before, Don says he's ready to hang it up. So that's our recommendation. We're talking about expenses now and what really is on the radar for 2021. I would just recap by saying at minimum, a planning, zoning, HARB person, and ideally a person that would be in place to start learning and, being ready to assume the assistant borough manager position when Dawn retires.
I think at tonight's meeting, I would like to ask someone to make a motion to not allow Dawn to retire.
If I could vote, I would.
He's too young, first of all. He's just gonna get in trouble if he retires.
So I have a related question. It would, if we find that in terms of finances, that it's too expensive to bring a person on full-time, at this point, could we say, look at the possibility of funding that three-part position, the zoning, harb planning for 6 months, and then step it up to full-time after that for that person? Because that would save a little bit of money for 2021.
You could look at that. I don't, honestly, I think you want to have a decent candidate pool. It's a very important rule. I don't think you want one or two people to apply and then pick from one or two people. I'm just saying, keep that in mind. If you really want to get a diverse pool of applicants and enough to evaluate and, look at and so on, you may want to consider advertising full-time and biting the bullet, so to speak.
I don't know for that position that someone would want to take it on part-time.
Yeah, I don't either, but it was just a thought.
Yeah, it's a good idea. It's tough to make that marriage.
It's my opinion too, Tom. I just think, if you really want to, look at the applicant pool, you're going to have to advertise full time. I started, 1994 in planning zoning. Within a year or so, at full time, but within a year or so, I was assistant to the borough manager. So yeah, I'm very familiar with this career path, and I think it's very valuable. You learn a lot along the way. Then I became the assistant borough manager, and then the borough manager, and that's what I kind of see with this person. Starting full time, go through a full advertisement. Pick a good candidate with a good background and get them started. But I mean, there probably are a couple options that you could look at, but I think, you want to try to have a decent candidate to start with.
Ralph, along those lines, to help us, we're moving sort of into the HR line, you're correct. But with the number of people, positions that through retirement that we won't backfill, can you, within the next week or so, give us a little chart or whatever to say, okay, these positions won't be backfilled. And if we do add this position, I'm thinking there's a possibility that we're not talking about significantly changing our staffing expense.
That's correct. Overall, I think in terms of funds, the general fund, the water fund, and so on. So you're right, John. Overall, I don't think we're going to see any significant increase if we do this right, because there's enough openings, that I think we can work things out for a few years and then look at where we're at in a few years. So I'm happy. Okay. I'd be pleased to put something together and, take it to the HR committee or whoever to start with and look at some options, and then go to the finance committee or so on. But I think there's options there.
Right, because I think everybody, I think I'm sort of hearing that people are on board with the idea of, the planning zoning hard person position. And if we can make it, if we can lay it out such that with the recent retirements, we're not talking, we're still going to see a reduction in manpower, person power costs.
Thank you.
Then I think it's a no-brainer. We go ahead with it. But yeah,
yes, I
was going to say, just so we're clear, I mean, the only position that we do not think that we're backfilling in the long run would be the refuse position. We do think we are going to backfill the 2 streets position, the water position, the wastewater treatment plant position, but we're going to get a 4-month reprieve on that. The plan is to backfill them in the spring, but the only position that we're not carrying to backfill, John, is the refuse position.
Right, right. But, we'll be going from more senior, or, more experienced senior people to younger people. So it still might work out for us money-wise.
There's no doubt there'll be some cost benefit there for sure.
Right, yeah,
If
I
we
think
don't,
as much we,
if we don't fill some of the positions for streets, are we gonna be okay with plowing in the winter?
Good question,
Good
Melissa.
question.
And with everyone taking off most of December to hunt?
There's a couple ways I can answer that. It all depends on the weather, the length of the storm. Most of our people, well, a fair number of them are here till the end of the year. We will have a couple leaving between now and then to like vacation out, we call it. But generally speaking, anytime there's a snowstorm, it's not just the street employees out there, it's the water employees, the refuse employees, and so on. So generally speaking, we have enough to cover. We do have language in the contract. As long as people are answering their phones and coming out when we call them, there's not a problem. If we get into a problem where we're not getting calls or not answering, or we're not getting people to come out, that's a different scenario, and we have language in the agreement to deal with that. But I would say generally, I believe we're pretty well prepared. Last couple of winters have been fairly light. If we get into a situation where we're into one snowstorm after another, we're certainly going to immediately borrow from other departments and then maybe look at backfilling sooner, but I think we can get by.
Let's just hope for a winter like last year.
Yes.
Yes, Doug.
When the HR committee is interviewing these folks for this possible position, I think not only the HR committee needs to be, the main focus of hiring this person, but I think it needs to be approved by all of council, whoever that may become.
I think they'd have to be, I think all of council would have to approve them. I'm just asking you, Doug, are you asking for 9 people to be interviewing?
No,
I'm sort of thinking, no, I would go on the HR's recommendation, but before that person is officially hired and offered the position, I think it needs to be approved by the whole council. Sort of like, I've said this before years ago, we hire people with, and the HR folks committee, which is their task, make the hiring decision. But this is an important position that all council has to work with. So I think it's important that all of council is involved at some point in time before that person is selected.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I'm willing to take input on the mechanism by which you would like to see that happen.
I would say if you get it down to 4 candidates, we look at their vita, their resumes, their experience, and pass that along to council and let council members make comments on those applicants, and then submit those to the HR committee for consideration. And then after the HR committee lists them as they would like to offer their job, let that be known by other council members. So they could say they agree or they don't agree of what the strong points may be of that candidate that you selected or other candidates. That's the process I'd like to see.
Yeah, okay, so you're just saying see the resume and then give a ranking and feed that back to HR. And okay.
So I have 2 questions. One's a point, and that to follow up on Doug, with those interviews, many interviews, the leadership of the department needs to be involved in those discussions as well. And they seem to have been left out in the last few selections that we've done.
I agree.
I agree. Randy's point is well taken.
Well, I don't think we left out anybody, the leadership of any department that employed somebody.
Chief of police.
Chief of police last time.
When we didn't hire anybody in his department.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Hired two.
Parking enforcement officers, work under the
It doesn't
chief.
matter. Somebody had leadership of somebody, and the leadership needs to be involved. You need to have their input. I'm just saying.
Well, I
they
think
know
this is the same discussion we had earlier about the 360 reviews.
I didn't hear the last part of your statement, Joanne.
We had an earlier meeting about 360 reviews where down level looks up to the senior level. I think this is basically the same thing, except this is before hire. That's all I'm saying. So I'm agreeing with Randy and Tom and Ann here. That I think if we look at the resumes, send them to the supervisors, send them to Ralph and Don, have all of them do the rankings like Doug said, then bring it back to the committee, and then we would, based on those things, narrow it down to 3 or 4 people to do the interviews, and we could go from there and then bring back recommendations to council. Then
Yeah,
it's a
I'm
slightly
fine with-
longer process, but I think in the long run, it makes everybody
Then
happy. I think
Would the
it's better.
leadership of that department be involved in that part of the process then toward the end for the last 4 or 3?
I think the borough manager and assistant manager are real important in that final 3 or 4.
Yeah, well, I
Mhm.
think that, would they not be the managers? The
Ask them.
person that
I
these
mean,
would be
sometimes
reporting to?
It depends on the day-to-day activities. I think Ralph even said that, he can't keep up with everybody. And so you have to rely on some people under you who manages that department. And however that works out is how it works out. But you still just need to have that input with somebody who's in there on the day-to-day basis, and not a group of people who might not understand what everything is that they get into.
I think Randy's referring to like the parking meter and the police chief. Is that correct, Randy?
Yeah, but I don't want anybody else to be missed or left out of. I mean, I was a manager. Everybody that was in my department, I hired, I interviewed,
Yes. What we have, for the most part, have the plant superintendent or public works superintendent or the police chief involved for the most part, with few exceptions. And I would just say over the years, for the most part, we've been consistent in having the department supervisor, chief, what have you, involved in the process. Now, there have been exceptions and there's been variations. I've been here long enough, I've seen them. So I can't say we've always done it this way or that way, because we haven't. We've tried to be fairly consistent. But going forward, I hear what you're saying. We can try to have the immediate supervisor involved in the process, wherever the opening is or whatever is going on.
And then back to the budget. So when you're saying we're going to be conservative, to me, what I think you're saying is, are we going in at this on a flat budget based on using our 2020 budget to take us through 2021 and only adding money where we need to add money where the requests come from?
I think we have to be realistic, Randy. I'll give you a couple examples. We already are tied into or bound by 2 union contracts, that being the police contract and the public union or public employees contract, public works contract. Those amounts of increases we're already obligated to provide. We have some ongoing street projects that we would like to look at or complete. For example, we talked about doing some upgrades to the corner of South Spring and West Bishop. And we have some funds set aside to do that. But if we were to take on new projects, it would require new, probably local matches, which that's where it gets harder to come by. So we look at doing a standard repaving of some of our streets. We have funds to do that. We look at some of the CDBG projects that we have in play. I believe we have funds to do that. But for example, in tonight's packet, there's a request for intermodal applications for grants. The minimum project is 100,000. It requires a 30% match minimum. I'm saying it's going to be a stretch to start doing things like that.
Right.
You know, we're going to try to get done what we have need to get done. I'll just sort of reflect on some things. We have a set of restrooms out at Governor's Park that's not complete. We've got this project on North or South Spring, West Bishop that we want to finish. And, you know, sometimes they don't go according to budget. We want to complete that. Those are the kind of things I think where we got to look at, well, we have so many irons in the fire, that's enough. You know, we can't go beyond and start doing more and more projects that we don't have either the match fund or the labor to do it in-house or what have you. You know, we just need to cut back and to be conservative that way.
Right, and I understand that, and that's, I think you're hitting on the points I'm talking about is, you know, the new stuff, we might have to push that off and look at
Right.
what's on the plate right now. There's the projects, wages, the things that you know are going to happen, and then see what that
Yeah.
budget's going to look like before we
Right.
do anything to it. And I'm sure Lori,
Yes.
because I think at one of our meetings she had mentioned that kind of going in on a flat budget type scenario. She, you know, even at the fire meeting, she was pretty plain speaking that don't ask for something you don't need, and
Yeah.
I think people are listening to her. So
Yeah,
I think the goal
I guess I'm taking a little bit of an exception to the idea that the HR committee has been willy-nilly going off and hiring people without the supervisors participating. Yes, we did get into a bit of a situation where the chief of police felt slighted. I do not know how that committee was pulled together, but for the most part, we have hired other people and their supervisors are part of the interview process. And so, you know, yes, something did happen with the hire for the parking meter and animal enforcement officers. But I can say that's an anomaly and it's over, it's done. But we don't, you know, the HR committee was not off just hiring people and saddling the borough with employees that management never saw. So, I mean, I just want to get that out there because
I'm not pointing fingers at any committee or anybody on the committee. I'm just stating that people need to be thought of whenever we're doing something that's going to affect their department, and that they should know what's going on in their department.
I get that. I get that.
Well, that's all I'm saying. I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I just, you know, I don't know where, I'm not pointing any fingers at anybody. I'm just.
John's a sensitive soul.
Happen again.
Well, I've heard this a couple of times, and yes, it did happen. And so we'll move on from it.
Yeah.
I agree, John. It's history, and you've recognized if you want to call it an error, let's move on and do better next time. That's all we can do.
So Ralph, let's go back to your your examples of what might or might not be able to add into the budget. A couple weeks ago, I just want to do a slightly different. We've got a request. We're possibly having a request, and this was something that Doug brought up, for making a unconstituted street become constituted, or whatever you want to call it.
Or ordained, yes.
Ordained street.
Ordained.
Yeah, the ordained street. If we were to do that, there would be an immediate expense. If we were to delay that until we knew better, and so it wouldn't be in the 2021 budget, we might be able to tell that community, if they decide to do the petition, but we can't do it for 2021, we'll have to hold off on that decision for a year, so that they know that we're listening to them. It's just because of the budget situation, we can't do it. That would be something like what you're talking about.
Yes, exactly. Something new, a new expense. I think we want to be very, very conservative in picking, which new expenses we want to do, if any, for 2021.
I would add on to that. I just want to try to convey as strongly as I can. If we can just maintain the current services in 2021 at their current level, I think that would be the goal. Not to lose anything, but to maintain. And I think that will be a challenge.
Go ahead, Lori. Lori, you were going to say something?
No, I was just listening.
No, your yellow light showed up. That's why I called on you.
There's a couple
I
of new.
think
I'm sorry, Joanne.
That was Lori. It wasn't me.
Oh, okay, sorry. There's a couple of new expenses that were mentioned about a couple of meetings ago, such as a police policy review. I do have some rough numbers. I'm happy to share those with the finance committee or whoever. I did get some responses and general numbers back. And that's, I guess you could say, a relatively new expense, but maybe it's a priority given light of what's happened this year, a number of incidents across the country and so on. It's just something that you have to weigh out and decide whether it's in or out of the budget, but I do have some rough numbers and some information for you.
The other thing that we're actually going to be voting on this evening in council is adding an administrative fee for codes enforcement, which would help pay for the zoning planning hard person. If we do it at the $2 that Ralph is mentioning, that would give us about $4,000 in extra revenue for next year. If we were to do it up higher than that, we would get some more, but that has to be a decision that council seems to make. And I know that from Ralph's note that some of the municipalities have it as high as $17 for each application. So that's something that we'll be actually discussing under new business this evening.
Actually, there's one municipality that has it at $17. All the other municipalities are around 2 or 3.
Yeah.
That's why we made the recommendation at 2.
Yeah, Ralph, I mean, the one that you mentioned, I would, the review study, I guess I would put a priority on that as a liability issue. So that's one of those things that I would say for the upcoming year that we sort of need to consider that strongly in the budget.
That's not a need. That's not a want. That's a need, is what you're saying.
Yeah, that's one of those. It's like, oh my, I'm scared of it.
Lori, I don't know if you had an opportunity when we discussed this the other day, but the one thing that we do have on, that the council we do have is that we have an outlay in January of a significant amount of money for a property. And you know, there's two ways we could go about it. One would be to use bulk water. And then with interest rates low, we could go out right now, start looking at, you know, taking out a 10-year loan for that property. And, but if we do that, we probably have to go through the Local Unit Government Debt Act, which would add another $20,000 or $30,000, $25,000 to the cost. And that's already committed, so we can't get away from it.
Yeah, I haven't reached out to Greg yet to ask him about that, but it's on my agenda.
Go ahead, Doug.
This is sort of a budget thing, and I haven't discussed it with anybody. I was at our last MPO meeting. It was suggested that some boroughs who are not participated in the MPO suggested maybe having some boroughs or township join. And Bellefonte was mentioned to perhaps be independent of the Nittany Valley planning. So I talked to Tom Zillow about it, and there is a fee. It's not cheap. It's about $8,000 a year, and we have to commit for at least 3 years. I do see the other side of it as maybe this would show our seriousness about wanting Phoenix Avenue and 144 coming from Pleasant Gap and Mill Street. If we're really, really serious about that, this gives the MPO an idea of how serious we are about wanting our project on the tip and funded. Now, you know, that's a political juggle. We now work through Nittany Valley planning, but and it's probably not the year to suggest this based on the conversation we're just having. But I wanted to inquire about it with Tom and bring it to Borough Council. And he is perfectly willing to come in and explain how it might benefit us joining the MPO as a borough and not as part of Nittany Valley planning. Randy, you might have some comments on that. But I think it's a lot of money, but it might be worth talking about it sometime with the Streets Committee or Borough Council as a whole.
Yeah, as you're saying, I don't think you're saying we're going to leave Nittany Valley, but we're going to become a member of the MPO.
An independent voting member of the MPO instead of right now. I'm sort of wearing 3 hats: Nittany Valley Planning, Bellefonte Borough, and the Center County Airport Authority. So we would then appoint our own Borough Council representative. We would still have the Nittany Valley Planning Commission representative as a voter, but we'd also have a Bellefonte Borough council member or an appointee from the borough as a voter on the MPO, both technical and coordinating committee.
I'd be happy to talk with everybody. I mean, I have some history when we used to be a voting member, paying member, and why we got out, and some background information I'm happy to share with you, and the reality of the situation, how it is set up with, the planning districts of Center County versus the Center Region municipalities that are all voting members. Give you my 2 cents.
Yeah, that would be very valuable information, Ralph. That's history that I don't know about. I know it's based on population, road miles, and assessed values of property, of how they come up with our fee to join. That
Sounds very confusing to me. So I think if we had some better background, and if this is going to affect the budget, it probably should be done in the next month or so.
It may be that based on what information Ralph provides, and if Tom Zillow can get here in the next month, maybe council will say, it's out of the question this year. And I value Ralph and Dawn's input on this. If they don't think it's worth the dollars and can convince council, that's fine with me. I was just bringing it up as a consideration. That's all.
Let me do some looking into this, Doug and everybody, and put a memo together. And I'll have it in the next packet for you.
Thank you, Ralph.
Sure.
Anything else, anybody? What other information do you all need from Lori so that we can go forward with the finance committee doing what we need to do next?
I think I'll just throw out, obviously we're in the mode of collecting data. We're ready to start setting up another round of finance meetings and, kind of hopefully have the September numbers in hand, have hopefully some information from the school district, how their collections went. But I think on our end, we'll have Melissa here in the office, start sending out the doodle calendar to set up another finance meeting.
I also think it's important that, Lori, maybe by the next meeting, we could start looking at some of the funds that aren't, that aren't a high priority and get through some of those because we're running out of time.
Yeah, I was planning on having them.
Could we do like we have with the streets committee? We send out the doodle, set up a regular, if not once, like a once a week or once every 2 week meeting. And then if we need to cancel, because we don't have any additional information, we could do that. That way we know on our agenda and we can keep moving forward. Because I think this is working really well for streets. I think it could work as well for finance as well.
Yeah, so you're looking for a standing meeting time,
Yeah.
day of the week type of thing.
Mhm.
Okay.
And we can set it up weekly, and if we find out we don't have the information to do 1 week, we can cancel it, but at least we know it's on the agenda.
Good.
Anything else? Then we have 10 minutes before the actual meeting starts.
Yeah, now, just a reminder, we're going to use the same link. So if you want to
Go
go off camera or whatever, but come back, here in about 10 minutes or so.
Hey, Melissa. Did she jump?
Yeah,
Melissa. Hey, Melissa, one thing on the agenda that it was neglected to put in is the invoice for Lycoming Supply. If you could, the engineer already signed off and approved it. It was he did that on September 28th, but we'd like council to approve payment in the amount of $34,942.50 under your parks report. And then this will go to the commissioners for their approval before, they can do the drawdown and make the payment.
Okay.
Just as a note, there's the current balance on the project is $107,569.31. And they should have the project done in 2 weeks pending good weather.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Well, it looks like it's going to be a beautiful week, so hopefully.
Yeah,
that
yes.
helps. Thank you, Dawn.
Okay, thank you.
Ralph? I guess he left. Okay, see you all in 9 minutes.
You ready for dinner? You ready for dinner? Okay.
to talk.
I got my makeup. I got my makeup on tonight.
Erica, real quick question for you. Erica, you're muted. Okay. Are you going to need to share your screen? We can't hear you. You're on mute.
It would be ideal if I could share my screen.
Okay. So Ralph, when that point comes, give her some sharing privileges.
Okay, I believe I have that setting on, but I'll check that as soon as I get the flag off the screen.
It looks like I have the option to share.
Okay,
So,
good.
yeah.
All right.
Thanks, Joanne.
You're welcome.
Hey, how do I change my name from Council 2 to Tom Wilson?
Have to go to court.
Here, I can do it for you.
Can you give him two O's and Tom so it can be like Doug Johnson?
There you go.
Doug Johnson.
Oh, there it is. Look.
Uh-oh, I lost the flag. Hang on a second. Let me see.
Might as well change Doug Johnson to.
There we go.
Haven't you seen the ad, Mike, for the, what's that insurance company? Doug.
Doug. No, I've missed that one.
CNET, are you ready? Okay. It's 7:30, so we'll go ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone. The October 5th Bellefonte Borough Council meeting is called to order. We'll have a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence for.
Joanne, your video isn't on if you want it on.
Oh, okay, sorry, hold on. There. We'll start off with a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence for Donald, Melania Trump, and all the victims of COVID-19. So pledge of allegiance first.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
which
which stands one nation
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Bosky,
Here.
Mr. Johnson,
Present.
Mr. Prendergast,
Here.
Ms. Thompson is excused, Ms. Tosti Vasey,
I'm here.
Ms. Walker,
Here.
Mr. Brackville,
Here.
Ms. Cleaton,
Here.
Mr. Eaton,
Here.
Mayor Wilson.
Present.
Need a motion to approve the minutes?
So move, Brackville.
Second,
Prendergast, okay. Any changes to the minutes? Seeing none? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? So moved. Consent agenda, we only have one item, the treasurer's report. A motion to accept the consent agenda.
I'm woke.
Prendergast.
I'll second it.
That's Ann Walker.
No.
Okay.
Deb, please.
Clayton.
Clayton, okay, Clayton. Thank you. Ralph, can you turn off your screen so I can see everybody on the,
Sure. Sorry about that. I was looking at the agenda here.
yeah, that makes it much easier so I can see who's speaking. Thank you.
Thank you.
All I can see is the speaker and Ralph.
Okay, if you go to your top, there's a speaker view and a gallery view.
Not on mine. I've been looking for it.
Wave your mouse up towards the right-hand corner, Mike.
I've done that. all I've got is a little item for expanding my, going to full screen.
You click around, it should show up.
So,
Does it
okay.
say view? Mike, does it say view in the upper right-hand corner?
No,
Okay.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the consent agenda, say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay. Moving on to written communications. Ralph, do you want to start?
Yes, first one is from the Pennsylvania Municipal League in regard to their virtual summit. And it's coming up the end of this month. They're looking for anyone who's attending and or an appointment for a voting delegate. What they're saying is they want a regular delegate and an alternate to vote at the business meeting and also attend the resolutions committee meeting. So really, they're looking for 2 people.
Okay. I know that I've already signed up for it. Is there anybody else?
I doubt if I have the time. I believe that's
No.
during the day, isn't it?
It's the meeting is the 29th, 30th, and 31st of October. And there's several meetings scattered throughout the day. The resolutions on Friday at, I think, 1:30, and the general business meeting is on Friday at like 3:30. Some about that
I
time.
think that the business meeting is Friday, 3 p.m. to 4:30 p.m.
Okay.
And the resolution is Friday, 1:30 to 2:30, October 30th.
So is there anybody else going?
Well, if you need somebody, Joanne, I will volunteer. But,
Okay.
unless there's some other member who chooses to be part of it.
So do we have a motion to have, I guess, me as the delegate and Doug as the alternate?
That sounds like a,
So that-
I'll
is that a-
second.
Joanne, okay, Joanne, discussion, do you need me at the resolutions committee meeting also? Or wasn't that you
That was
year?
me the last year.
Yeah,
You don't really need to be there, but well, actually, I don't think you were at that meeting last.
No, I was not. You were there. I was
Yeah.
the alternate.
Yeah,
So,
it might be nice just to sit in case there's any comments.
okay.
And who made the motion?
Brockville.
Okay, Brackville and Prendergast. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And all opposed? So moved.
All right, next item is from CATA, and they're just letting everyone know that they're doing some temporary discontinuance of commuter routes, including what they call the XB route that comes into Bellefonte. Basically, low ridership is taking place, and in its place, they're using CATA Go, which is that new service we're familiar with here in the Bellefonte area. They've actually extended some of the services through CATA Go, but anybody interested for more information can find it at catabus.com. So we're just trying to get the word out. Go to their website, catabus.com. If there aren't anything, I'm sorry, Mr. Johnson.
Along with that, being connected with the Center County Transportation Office, a reminder that the Center County government offers a shuttle van from 6:30 in the morning until 5 or 5:30 in the evening. And they cover routes that the CATA Go does not cover. And all it's required is a phone call to the transportation office to arrange a ride. Just we seem to focus on CATA Go all the time, and sometimes I think we forget about the county van service that's available.
Is that limited? Isn't that limited to certain groups of people though?
No.
Yes, yes.
It is?
Yeah.
I think you can pay and ride.
I
Worth
think you
checking.
also have to make a a reservation, you have to call ahead. Cat2Go is pretty much in the moment and door to door.
That's right. I'm just reminding folks that the county does offer a van service also.
Anything else? And move on, Ralph.
All right, thank you. The next item on our agenda is there's a dinosaur drive-through exhibit available for nonprofits. We just got a flyer on it. I wanted to pass it on in case there was a nonprofit that was interested in doing a, I guess, a COVID-friendly type of fundraiser. I'll move on here. CNET obviously covers our meetings, broadcasts our meetings. The director there, Cindy Hahn, reminded us that they have an email notification service for our meetings or any meetings of interest. If any of our citizens or anybody watching this meeting wants to have the email notification system set up so that when our meetings are available for viewing, CNET sends them an email automatically. If you want that service, just go to CNET1, make sure I get it here, CNET and the number 1.org. If you, again, want to get signed up for that email service, it's just one way for citizens to watch our meetings or be notified that they're available for viewing. They also archive all of our past meetings. So there are some ways to stay tuned or stay informed when council's, looking at new legislation and those types of things.
Ralph, is the CNET with or without the hyphen?
It is without the hyphen. It's the 4 letters. C as in cat, N as in Nancy, E as in Edward, T as in Tom, and then the numeral 1.org, O-R-G.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Hearing nothing else, we'll go on to the next item, which is the PennDOT speed display sign is being placed on State Route 550. We know it as Zion Road. It's near the former Bonfato's site out there by Medical Park Lane and Parkview Boulevard in that area. And it'll be up for approximately 4 weeks. And we just want residents, drivers, motorists to slow down coming into town or going out of town. There's a school nearby. Of course, downtown is congested. So it's just a reminder, has a radar system built into it as to what your speed is, so hopefully it'll be an educational tool more than anything. Mr. Johnson?
Doug?
I just heard from the transportation director at the county. Anyone can ride the county van service. Just to clarify that.
Thank you, Doug.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is a notice about the Center County Refuse and Recycling Center's Household Hazardous Waste Collection Event. It's scheduled for November 20th, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., November 21st, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Again, if you're looking for more details, I would recommend going to the Center County Recycling and Refuse Center website, but that'll be coming here in November.
You also have to make an appointment, don't you?
If that's on the notice, I missed that.
Yeah.
That's possible.
I believe it's on there.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Okay. Well, again, if someone's interested, go to the website and you can check for more details. One thing I didn't see on the agenda, but was in the packet, is the Center County Government's Liquid Fuel Grant Program notice, just saying that there's grant funds available. They're looking for applications on or before Friday, October 23rd. This is something that we may be able to do. Usually there isn't any match or a very small match. And we may be able to combine these funds with the project we talked about there at South Spring Street and West Bishop Street. So something we'll certainly take a look at, or maybe have the Streets Committee take a look at.
Actually, I had it down in the Streets Committee meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
You just didn't get down far enough.
Okay.
Do you want to hold off on that motion or do you want to go ahead and do it now? Because
Why don't we take care of it now?
Okay, so need a motion to apply for the liquid fuels grants monies as outlined in the letter from the Center County Administrative Office.
I'll make that motion.
Clayton,
Seconded, Prendergast.
Prendergast. Discussion?
Free money is good.
Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved.
I believe that's all we have under written communications. I see we have a Eagle Scout or Eagle Scout to be with us. And that's Mr. Euler, Kyle Euler. Kyle, why don't you tell us a little bit about your project and you know, what you're interested in talking to council about. I think you're muted though.
Hi, my name is Kyle Euler. I'm a Boy Scout from Troop 45 working on the Eagle Scout project. My project is going to be restoring the historical snowplow in Bellefonte, PA in Talleyrand Park. I'm going to be re-roofing it, and I'm going to need some way to get rid of the debris and residing.
Okay, and you would like some help from the borough to haul that away? Is that your request?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if council would want to consider doing that.
Do we have a motion to help Kyle out?
I'll make a motion to help Kyle out, have the borough supply a T-tag or something to help Kyle remove the remains of his renovation of the snowplow at the Talleyrand Park Railroad Station, I think is where it's located.
I will second that, Prendergast.
Prendergast.
Sounds like a worthy project.
Yes.
Discussion?
Thank you for doing that, Kyle. It's a great project. Good luck with that.
Got a curiosity question. You said you're going to be restoring and re-roofing it. Where are you getting your information from, and how can we help you all from a historic preservation perspective?
You work with the Railroad Society, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my understanding. He and his family have worked with the Railroad Society and every step of the process. The family has a history of working on those cars and very involved in the restoration of those cars. So I believe even his dad, Alan, worked on this car as part of his Eagle Scout project. So they're working very closely with the Railroad Society to answer your question.
So that's good. Just want to make sure that you have the information and background you need to do it. Wow.
Go for it, Kyle.
Yeah, we thank you, Kyle. It's a great project for our community. Please let us know, when you're ready, and we'll coordinate with you when you need your help and everything. Happy to work with you on this.
Would you guys be able, one of you, to meet me down there?
Yes, we could,
About issues and stuff?
yes, we'd be happy to meet you on site. I have your email address. We can arrange a time that works for everybody and work out the details.
Great. Thank you, Kyle.
Yep.
Thank you,
very
Kyle.
much. Take care.
Thank you.
Should we vote before he leaves?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
So all in favor of assisting Kyle Euler with his snowplow historic preservation restoration plan, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Right. Got a unanimous support, Kyle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So moving on, we now have another oral presentation on the agenda, and it's Erica Beauvais. She's a consultant with Design to DBI and the borough on our wayfinding signage project. She's going to give us the most current update. So, and so if you can allow Erica to share a screen now.
Yep, I'll do that now. Okay. So as you know, we've been working on the Bellefonte wayfinding system, and the most crucial foundation for the project was the identity development. Today, or tonight, excuse me, we're going to present the final identity to you. And this is, of course, within the wider stretching wayfinding system that is also underway. So this is the final logo mark. We've gone through the process of developing a series of different color palettes, and we were, with the design committee, we narrowed those palettes down to this particular palette. On this next page, you can see the expanded palette. It does include a nice bronze metallic color, which will be applied to the signs. There's also been the definition of 4 systematic colors specific to 4 different categories that have been highlighted when we get later down the road into any kind of a kiosk development. So essentially, we've identified systematically the 4 key categories that would be a part of that larger system. Here, again, we're showing the logo mark used in place on 4 of the gateway signs. The quote for the signs have actually been provided already by Victorian Signs, which is a local vendor. So we have all of those numbers out. Those are over to Don currently. As you can see in this system of the 4 signs on the lower left, we have a design that would include a customized scroll. The scroll design, shape, and style would mimic the scrolls that would be, in fact, not customary to the project. So they would essentially be devised as independent units that would then be adhered to the structure of the poles and then powder coated as a single unit. This is a projection of the big spring entrance. This particular sign, we only need a front-facing path for. This is the projection of the armory. This particular color palette, we went through a couple of systems of blues. The blues were really a tough pill, I think, for everyone to swallow because of your proximity to Penn State. And really, there just being enough colors and palette options out there to be able to avoid the Penn State blue. The color system continues to project the charm and the character of Bellefonte. This is an example of the wayfinding signs from a walking perspective. This shows the way that we've pulled out a secondary color on the wayfinding signs in order to create a distinct hierarchy from top to bottom and left to right on each particular sign. So the eye naturally starts at the top left. Obviously, systematically, people will identify at this point the logo mark for Bellefonte. And then the secondary items in hierarchy are obviously the locations, and then the process in thinking there is that obviously you first identify a location and then as a secondary step, identify how to get to that location. So all of those things came into play during the development. We also found that in order to keep the letter height as tall as possible, that an italic allowed us the best flexibility to do that. This is a projection that shows the front and the back side. The backside printing is included, so we thought it would be nice to add a beautiful watermark to represent the brand identity. This is a secondary projection of the wayfinding signs. This is an option for expanding the size of the word marks even more in order to increase visibility at driving speeds and at further distances while someone is driving past the signage. And yet another expanded option that, again, increases the readability, especially at further distances and during faster speeds. Here's a look at it from a systematic standpoint. As you can see, from walking to driving, everything still fits very much together as a larger wayfinding system, and still fits underneath the larger brand identity that's been established for Bellefonte. These are examples of the parking signs. Again, you can see how little elements like the color, the metallic, you know, those can really be nice features to add that additional character and charm to the signs. And we have a projection of the actual, the municipal trucks with a simple one color treatment, showing that the identity has the ability to be expanded upon and even be used as a simple mark, but yet obviously recognizable and still systematic to the larger brand. So we're in the process now. Here's a larger projection of the system as a whole. This shows the gateway signage on the left, and all the system of signage on the, or excuse me, on the right, and the system of signage on the left.
That's great.
It's really exciting. I think that there's something to be said, you know, for the way that I think the town will really kind of react to having this identity.
Yeah.
There's something pretty special about it.
Yeah.
And we've worked recently with Don to deliver some letterhead and business card design options. We're working through this now with Don. But as you can see, there's been some nice patterns and elements that have been pulled out of the motif in order to create some stationary options that will further the brand. That's it. So we're at the, we're at the point now where we're essentially going to be establishing each of the wayfinding signs and directional signs, what will be actually on the signs, so that we can devise the artwork layout for production.
I have a question. This is something to give Erica some additional information. Last week, Ralph, or Don, I actually took a copy of the Axman Road wayfinding sign and sent it on over to Spring Township, because that sign is actually outside the borough just before it comes into town. Have you heard back yet, Don, from them about?
We have not. We're waiting to hear back.
So Don, once you hear back, can you let Erica know so that we know whether that sign's a go or not?
Yes.
The others are all within the borough, so we have control of it. That's the one that is not.
Okay. That's great.
thoughts, comments on the design in general from anybody?
Looks pretty good.
You look great.
That looks great.
Looks pretty
Beautiful.
classy.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Great. I think our preference, just to reiterate, the preference that we had for the larger wayfind or the larger welcome signs was the one with the scroll on the side. And I think that was the one that we had gotten final prices on, with the idea that it would be a little more distinctive and a little bit more, the committee felt that it was a little more welcoming because there wasn't as many obstructions around it. So this is the one that we would propose for the Big Spring area. And Bob Bowersox thought that rather than have a separate piece and attach it to an existing pole, he would rather have that be all one piece so that we would avoid vandalism issues. So his thought was that he would cut the scroll. I want to modify that a little bit so that we don't have a trade dress issue with the company that's supplying the other signs. But then he could construct the poles and such as one piece, and we would get it powder coated as one piece. So that was his recommendation. Of course, Maria Day, being a stonemason, suggested the stone layout and the taper on the stone top that you see there. The other thing is Bob Bowersox thought that he could install this in the winter because he's poured concrete and such, you know, as soon as we have funding and approval for funding, he could probably go ahead with this. So the wayfinding signs could come early, and then as we can get the funding for the rest of the wayfinding signs and everything, then that could come later. So it's a matter of when we have the funding to go ahead. But of course, the letterhead can happen anytime you want that to happen. That's easy.
Do we need a motion on this, or can we just have them continue moving ahead with the final production plans?
It's whatever council would like to do. I mean, is this the culmination of the project, or?
Well, what has to happen, as Erica mentioned, is just the final art for the wayfinding signs. A lot of that we can figure out, but that's a whole system of finalizing exactly what goes on each sign as you approach a corner. Nikki Mendinsky and I went through that a month or two ago online. So it's a matter of knowing exactly what goes on each sign to have that final art done. But in terms of the welcome signs, that's ready to go.
Yeah.
Letterhead would be ready to go.
The other part,
which option you like.
phase 5 of this project was creating a document for HARB based on this. That still needs to be done.
Right, yeah, and that's transitioning over to what Nikki is doing.
Correct.
Yeah.
So can we have a motion for them to finalize all of their artwork for phases 1 to 4 of this grant project?
I'll make that motion.
Bill.
Who was that?
Rack Bill.
I'll second it.
Rackville and Clayton. Discussion? Seeing none? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Thank you, Erica. You've done an excellent job.
Yes.
Really appreciate it.
Nice work.
Thank
you,
so much.
Erica and
It's been a
Nancy.
pleasure. It really has.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Erica.
It's gonna be exciting to see it in place.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right.
Take
I
care,
guess
everybody.
we can, I can stay on, or Erica, do you want to stay on, or?
I'm
Yeah, you
gonna
can say,
put my kids to bed.
Huh?
I'm gonna go.
she's gonna put her kids to bed.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
All right,
Thank you so much,
Thank you,
everyone.
Erica.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
night.
Any other oral comments? Okay, seeing none. Tom, as mayor, you're on.
Thank you. Well, I'm pleased to announce that we are moving ahead with the Bandshell project. We've put together a Bandshell steering committee, which is comprised of Tom Bathgate, Rick Jacobs, Mike Desmond, Melissa Himbosky, Andrea Morell, and myself, plus Ralph and Dawn have been, we'll probably be back and forth covering the meetings as well. We had a real quick meeting a couple weeks ago with just a few people to try to just get some idea of how we want to do this and how big a committee we wanted to form. And we're going to have our first full meeting this next Wednesday on the 14th at 4 p.m. We're going to have an outside venue. I'm not sure exactly where we're going to be. I've got a message into Rick Jacobs. He might want to host it at his patio if the weather holds up. But we're looking to, this will be all done with, hopefully our goal was to use private funding. And we're looking to raise, I don't know, we're going to talk about that at the meeting, but I'm looking somewhere in the neighborhood of $200,000 to $300,000. Nancy, you look perplexed.
What are we talking? It's a Bandshell.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, in Talleyrand Park, over in front of where the old subway was, or behind it, basically.
Oh.
And that was all run through the Talleyrand Park Committee, and Andrea, the president, is on our board or on our steering committee. So we would like to have the fundraising done prior to spring, so we can possibly apply for a grant. But we may not even need it. Depends how much money we raise. But we've put out a preliminary target list for partners who want to be a part of this, which I think would be a historic structure, which can define the park and create a lot of interest in outdoor activities. The symphony could play there. There's anywhere from symphony music to country and western, and schools could hold plays and concerts there as well. So that's that, and we're moving forward. The only other thing I have is that I don't know if anybody else has heard from some of the businesses downtown. I wanted to talk to Gina to see if she's gotten any feedback from any businesses. But I've had a few people question the 8 o'clock meter, 8 to 8 meter.
Can you hold off for just a second?
Sure.
There is somebody talking. I think it's the 2033 number. I can't hear. Can you mute yourself?
There we go. Anyhow, I've been approached by 3 businesses, so it's not a lot.
Still talking.
It's still on.
Joanne, we're getting some feedback somewhere from somebody's microphone.
If you're not talking, please mute your feed. There it's going. Anyhow, the question is, why are we metering till 8? I don't have any opinion on that. Ralph and I talked a little bit about it, and I guess there are some businesses that are okay with that, but I just don't want to get into a trend. I mean, obviously a lot of our downtown retail businesses are struggling because of the COVID setback, just like the borough is. And I don't want us to start doing a lot of things that are maybe stifling business. So, if we want to talk about the parking and what we're doing with that at some point in time, I think that would be a good idea.
The streets committee's been dealing with parking. We have a standing committee meeting on Thursdays at noon. I'll send you the link so that you can be involved.
All right, well, just kick it around. Like I said, I don't know that it's a huge issue. I just know that some people were surprised that you have to pay the meters until 8 o'clock.
I would be surprised.
I'm getting, Mayor, I'm getting the same feedback as you are.
All right. Well, any change is always this, we get that with any change that we have, but maybe there's some way we can make a compromise. I'm not sure. Okay, that's all I have, Madam President.
Okay, any, Sean, or someone raise your hand.
I just wanted to add something. Mayor and I haven't had a chance to discuss it, but today was our kickoff of our pedestrian safety initiative. And the speed sign that Ralph had mentioned earlier was put in place last week to coincide with the pedestrian safety initiative.
Ralph, can you mute everybody except the speaker?
Go ahead, Sean.
Okay, so like I said, today we began our targeting in the downtown area, specifically Allegheny Street, West High Street, and around the school areas where there's a lot of heavy pedestrian traffic. We're setting officers there when they're not otherwise busy on calls, you know, stopping cars, giving out pamphlets, leaflets on safety tips. Both pedestrians are being stopped who are crossing mid-block, and we put some things out on our Facebook site, and I put some pressers out as well. It's going to last until probably about 2 weeks, so we'll have some good hard data, amount of cars that we've stopped, how many warnings, tickets, pedestrians, and hopefully it makes our
You went on mute, Sean.
hopefully that will enhance our safety of the downtown area. You know, keep visitors coming in. I've seen a lot of big, heavy, an uptick in our foot traffic since COVID-19 has started, actually. So I think people are out and about on foot quite a bit. So that's all I have.
Any questions for Sean or the mayor?
It's a good thing.
Thank you, Sean.
You're welcome.
Okay, then we'll move on. Council report, no report, moving on.
Building,
Yeah, I don't have anything.
Any questions or about building and property? Go ahead, Doug.
I don't know if this is the right time to bring it up. I had a couple of phone calls about a building on Manchester Lane. The roof is caving in, and it's been that way for months, I guess. So where do I bring that up and when?
We're happy to tell you what we know of it. The property owner has contacted us and said they're taking care of it. You know, I mean, I'm not sure how long it's been in that condition, but I do know the property owner is trying to be, responsible and fix the roof. That's my understanding anyway.
The property owner is working with the building code, Doug, and they've got it taped off for safety hazards, but I do know that he's working on getting a building permit to get it taken care of.
Mayor Wilson? You have to unmute yourself.
No, I was just wondering why we're still getting some of that feedback.
I don't know.
I think it might be Mike. He's the only one
muted
unmuted.
Mike, so it must be Mike.
I'm not saying anything. I don't have anything on.
Mute yourself.
Okay.
Anyway, I just wanted to ask, I had I was stopped by a resident this evening, was asking about the waterfront property. Any news?
Little bits of pieces of news, you know, I think a meeting or two we mentioned they received their stormwater permits called an NPDES permit, basically a discharge or a stormwater permit that's required for development. They did get that renewed. They also were looking at some additional grant funds for primarily for the parking garage. I believe the project is, still alive, so to speak. There's no indication that they're going to not build a hotel or anything like that. I mean, I don't see any changes. I've not heard of any changes. I'm sure they're a little concerned about vacancy rates and when they would start the project, but I'm still seeing signs that looks fairly positive.
Thank you, Ralph.
Sure.
Anything else? Okay, seeing none, moving on to finance and government performance. Ralph, do you want to take this since Gina isn't here this evening?
Sure. You see that we had listed the strategic management plan. We were expecting to get that soon. We did not get it on Friday, so it's not in your materials as far as the packet. So most likely by the next meeting, we'll have the report, received and out to you for review. Lori has included the August 2020 financial reports, what we call the current versus prior, the budget versus actual, and the voucher summary. I don't know if you want to consider a motion to accept those.
Do we have a motion?
So moved, Rockville.
I'll second Hobosky.
That's the problem with everybody being on mute.
Could be a fast.
Any discussion? Any questions on any of these items? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
Okay, next item is, and we touched on this in the budget work session prior to the council meeting. It says consider fee to offset code related staff time, and there's a memo from Dawn actually. Although we both are supportive of it, or at least considering it. And what other municipalities do, basically, we do not receive any building code fees, any rental property fees whatsoever. They all go to our contracted code agency. Meanwhile, we're taking a lot of the calls, here in the office, handling a lot of the problems, and not getting any fees to help compensate our operations for that. The other municipalities around us that have the code services contracted out have come up with a fee from anywhere from $2 to $17, as we mentioned in the work session. 17 is by far the highest. The average is probably $2 to $4. We thought $2 would bring in about $4,000 annually. It wouldn't even cover a part-time person, but it's better than not having any funds. So all we're saying is, this is the budget season we're in. If you're interested or you really are serious about it, let us know. What happens is we tell, Center Region Council of Governments, we're committed. They help prepare a fee resolution. We put it back on your agenda, and before the end of the year, be adopted just like the budget and our standard fee agenda. But we want to put it on your radar. Last year, as a memo indicated, we were a little too late to consider it. We missed that kind of window to get the rates published and all that. So we're bringing it up this year for your consideration.
So I was talking to Don about this, and what he told me is that because the codes enforcement is making their budget now, we need to notify them at the beginning of October that we're intending to do this fee, so they can include it in their planning budget. So because of that, I'd like a motion for you all to select an amount and say how much it was so that we can notify Center Region Codes as to what we're planning on doing. And then when we actually do the fees in December, it will include that fee schedule.
I'll make the motion.
How much?
Well, I'm just wondering if $2 is enough, but $2 is reasonable for the fee anyway.
So is your motion for $2 or are you making it more because you just said two things?
$2 is, I'll make it for $2, but I'm just wondering if anybody's gonna complain that it's not enough.
Okay. Have a second?
I'll second it. Walker.
Okay. Discussion?
Well, I guess I'm with Mike. I'm like, if whatever fee we pick, it needs to make sure it covers the effort or the associated efforts that we may be expending.
I'll just throw in my 2 cents. I think we do need to consider a proper fee because it could be 5 years before we have the opportunity again. Because I think this is the first increase probably since we started using Center Region Code for any kind of increases.
Actually, it went down last year, but when we went from 3 years to 2 years.
Anyway, it's,
So,
you know, you could see this in place for like three to 5 years, I think.
Do we know what the length of time it will be in for?
Well, you know, honestly, we do the fee resolutions annually, and that's why we do it. We want to review all of our fees on an annual basis and keep them current. I mean, you know, some go up, some go down. You know, I would throw that out that we really should be doing that every fall in the budget season.
Then I'd say that $2 is good, and we can revisit it next year.
So my thoughts, based on what Randy and Mike and all have said, is maybe we should do a halfway compromise because Ralph did say reasonable between $2 and $4. So why don't we try $3, which would require an amendment to the motion. And then next year, if that's too high or too low, we can adjust it then, but that's kind of a middle ground.
I'll make a motion for that amendment.
Okay. That's John. Who seconds that?
I'll second it.
Okay. Discussion on the amendment? Seeing none?
Reasonable.
All in favor of the amendment?
Mike, how do you say it's reasonable?
Well, it's better than 17, and we do need some revenue coming in. I don't think $3 is unreasonable.
Well, here again, we're pushing these fees onto rental property owners. I know that they're the ones that get the inspections. If we had another inspection agency, would we be incurring the same fee? Ralph, Don?
Well, it depends. I mean, if we did it in-house, you know, we'd have a fee set that covers our expenses. So in that way, you know, the fees are supposed to cover the cost of service. So like, that's why we look at our planning fees every year, zoning fees. It's not supposed to be paid for by the general taxpayer. So rental property costs are to be paid by the rental property owners. And the zoning administration for people getting zoning permits are to be paid through permit fees. So the general taxpayer should not be paying or supplementing those other expenses. I said in the beginning, right now, we're not getting any money from the rental properties, and we're doing a fair amount of work, all of us in the office, responding to calls and, you know, handing out information, responding to calls, getting a hold of the administration as far as code officers and so on. So I think some fee is justifiable. $2 to $3 is very much on the low end.
But
know,
isn't that part of the Center Region Code's responsibility as our code enforcement folks to answer those questions? In
They're-
the,
they're- Yeah, I'll answer that, Doug. They're not here in the office. When we get the call, we call them and they respond. We're handing out the information, and we're being the coordinator for that information, responding to residents, complaints, whatever. We're in the middle, and typically it is a rental property, not all the times, but we have a lot of rental properties in the borough. I think, here a couple years ago when we were looking at rezoning, we have 1,500 rental units, or over 50% of our housing units are rental units. And we get a fair amount of calls, I'm just saying we do. And we're the middle people making the coordination between the code officer and the resident or the neighbor calling, and we get nothing right now. So it was
So
talked about.
the rental property owners do pay real estate taxes
They
too.
do.
And they do pay the inspection fee, and the inspection fee is to include those inquiries to Center Region Code. So they should be responding to, so the direction from the borough could be call the code office, not you guys having to answer. I'm
Yeah.
asking the questions.
Sure, those good questions, Doug.
Because we were promised by Center Region Code this excellent service. So, and they do give us excellent service. They do a fantastic job. So why can't our residents call them and ask the same questions that they're asking of our borough office?
They call here, Mr. Johnson. They call us. They call the secretaries. They call me, and we coordinate the call. We're trying to be polite and courteous. We take the information and we call the code administrative people and tell them what's going on and where the address is and those kinds of things. And then they handle it, and that's what's happening. I don't think, we want to look at how we should handle those calls or just say, call Center Region Code, click, I don't think we want to do that. But we talked about this last year. We missed the timeline. We're simply bringing it up. If council's interested, now's the time. If you're not interested, that's fine. It just means that the general taxpayer is supplementing some work related to rental properties.
Related to Center Region Code's responsibility.
No, Center Region is paid to inspect properties. They're paid
And answer questions.
Yes, and we give them the information.
Okay.
We give them the information and tell them what the problem is. When we get the call, we pass that on to them. So, we're in the middle.
So
And
what I'm hearing Ralph saying is that the borough is an information and referral to codes enforcement, and that costs time and money. And so
Yes.
the request for the funding, this minimal amount of funding, is to help pay for that information and referral. to
Okay.
codes.
Okay, and my question is, would other inspection agencies do the same?
I know when we interviewed inspection agencies, Mr. Johnson, they all said, tell us what you want, and, we'll basically come up with a fee. We talked about them attending the HARB meeting, writing letters to property owners, whatever we want, they'll have a price, just like an attorney or you name it. If we want something, we're going to pay. So the things that we have signed up for with Center Region, they're doing. This is stuff that we are doing, and there's no specific revenue other than general taxes to cover our efforts.
I think along with that, if you pass it on to Center Region, then it'll be their fee and something they control. And it takes it out of our control. At least having it set up the way it is, we can control some, whatever those costs might be as far as the fees go.
Let me clarify, the way this works, the Borough Council sets the fee on an annual basis. we tell Center Region Code what the fee is. They collect it when they send out their renewal notices. They collect it, they send us the check. So that's another reason why we have a window. They're gonna invoice rental property owners accordingly for the new year's inspection costs. And other municipalities send that same note, the same invoice has the fee on it. So we don't have to bill twice, it's billed once. They collect it and then they send us our fees.
Well, again, to speak to the amendment, I think if we're looking at it annually, let's keep it at the original $2 as per the motion. That's my recommendation.
Any other discussion? Okay. Seeing none, we'll vote on the amendment first for the $3. Since it looks like there's some difference of opinion, let's do it by roll call. So a yes vote means $3, and no vote means go back to the $2.
Thank you for saying that. Ms. Ombowski,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson,
No.
Mr. Prendergast,
Aye.
Ms. Thompson is excused, I'm sorry, Ms. Tosti Vasey,
Aye.
Ms. Walker,
No.
Mr. Brackbill,
No.
Ms. Cleaton,
No.
Mr. Eaton.
Aye.
Let's see, 1, 2.
4 to 4.
You need to ask the mayor.
Thank you very much. It is a tie. The mayor, what is your vote to break the tie?
No.
That's a no. Okay, so
Okay, so the amendment fails. So now we have the main motion at $2. So all in favor of the $2 fee? Do we have any objection? Okay, seeing none.
So I get, well, okay. I guess I
Okay.
do have, when we talk about the rental owners paying this fee, it's the fee that they will use as an expense when they fill out their income taxes to defer the income from the rental. So keep in mind, it's a fee that is basically a business expense that'll be reduced from their income taxes. So let's be aware of that when we talk about the level of the fee.
So why don't we do a roll call this time too, just to be sure?
sure. Ms. Ombowski,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Prendergast,
Yes.
Ms. Tosti Vasey,
Yes.
Ms. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Brackbill,
Yes.
Ms. Cleaton,
Yes.
Mr. Eaton.
Yes.
It looks like
That's
that's
unanimous.
unanimous.
Okay. So we will, if you can send that on to Center Region so they can do it in their planning. We will then include that plan for the fees in December.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was the last item under finance.
Any other thing else for finance from anyone? Okay, seeing none, move on to streets. Deb?
Do we want to start with Victorian Christmas since Mr. Dunn is with us? We've received today a revised letter from Sally Hauser outlining her breakdown of how the committee and how the event is going to address the COVID-19 restrictions. It's a little bit more detailed than the first version we got, but I think we need I'd like to get some more information on how the arts and crafts are going to be set up.
Jim, Jim, can you speak?
Yes, I can. I did send out the did everybody get that, or do I think I can project it probably.
Ralph, do you have the pictures of the layout that you could
Yes,
share?
you want to, if you want to try, Jim, or I'll try.
Well, I've never done this before, so I'm
All
not
right,
sure.
Give me 2 seconds here. 1 second here.
Here, let me, I got this up here.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
It's too
Yeah.
big, but other than that, we set it up to do it off of High Street down at the park level. So this is West High Street, and this is the waterfront district. We have sort of unlimited space there. So we can put as many vendors as we want. I was also told that we could use one side of High Street. So there are several there, and we could use the raceway. I have several concerns. Number one, you guys are going to do the mask legislation pretty soon, but we need to have that a requirement. These are spaced 10 feet apart and 10 feet between rows. And on the raceway, it's about 12 feet between vendors, and we tried to intersperse them so that they're not directly across from each other. The concerns I have are with parking. If we have 35 vendors, where am I going to put 35 vendors, and then where are your people coming to town going to park? The second concern I have is with the shuttle. Shuttles are high risk exposure. And then third one is, are we going to have tour buses? If we have tour buses, then we have lots of customers, which is great for the vendors, but the tour buses themselves are high risk. So are we going to have tour buses? And the last concern I have, oh my, the last concern I have is snow. If it snows, I have to be able to remove some snow from this waterfront district. And I know we have to get permission to use the waterfront district. That's the best I can do. I'm not sure this is a whole lot better than having it spaced out along High Street and Allegheny Street, like the initial plan that I suggested. But this is what I think I got directions to do. And so this is my answer to those directions.
It's Hamboski here. I would suggest looking at an alternative other than the waterfront. Unless it is a cold winter and that area is frozen, it will not work out. Last year, the winter market planned to be in the lower area. That ground has very, very, very poor drainage. And because it rained for about a week before that event, we had to move into the parking lot of the Gamble Mill because it was literally a swamp. So I think that's a really big concern.
Yeah, it is. So the ideal weather would be nothing above freezing and no precipitation.
Yeah.
If, to make this an effective arts show for the vendors, they have to be pretty much in the same general area. If we have them spread out all over the place, it's very likely that a whole bunch of vendors are going to be in non-traveled areas, and they're going to do extremely poorly. And then my reputation is lost forever. And we're going to try to do this again next year, hopefully under better circumstances. But spreading them out too far, I think, is counterproductive.
Yeah. Jim, do you know how many vendors you have right now?
We have no vendors right now because I'm not going to send out applications until I know what we're doing. But I did do a poll, and we have almost 200 people on the vendor email list. I mean, and so I'm not even going to send out a letter on this. I'm only going to do people with email addresses. So I got about 30 people who said they were possibly interested. There's no commitments, however, from that yet.
Okay. My understanding from Sally was that this was not going to be a widely publicized event because we need to keep, even though the event is broken down into kind of 3 different parts with the musicians either at the gazebo or in front of the courthouse, the carriage rides are separate, and then the arts and crafts portion is separate, that each of those venues potentially can be kept to fewer than 250 people per
Right.
event.
And if you have the concerts in the gazebo, like we did this summer, and we put down paint in circles so that we could try to keep people, and they did pretty good job on that too. But most of the people sat up on a raceway. And so if you get a lot of people down for the concerts, and you really run the risk of having a lot of people in that area.
Right.
So,
and I have not heard anything about doing a park and ride that would normally be happening because the buses are not a realistic option.
Sally said that there were not going to be any.
Right, that's what I mean. No shuttle buses and very likely no tour buses if this is not a widely advertised event. She's trying to keep, I think, as local as possible.
Well,
so it's a challenge.
The less people who show up, the less number of vendors I would like to have, maybe 30.
Right,
35.
because the number of vendors counts towards the 250 maximum.
Right, absolutely right. And the vendors have been, I mean, this has been a really bad year for vendors, and they're desperate. So that's the only reason I think we should have it, is because it's been a terrible year for the vendors. They've been shut out of all sorts of shows. And they're very enthusiastic, the ones who did respond about having it. So anyway,
my concern is not with the waterfront development side, but the Talleyrand Park side. And Deb hinted at this, is we've got the concerts going on at the gazebo. They could easily bring 100, 150 people.
Well, you'd be real lucky to get that many in the winter at the gazebo.
Yeah. And you have the vendors there, and you're mixing 2 crowds, so that suddenly becomes one event.
Yeah, and that's a problem.
And that's a serious one. If we were to eliminate the vendors on the Talleyrand Park side so that you could do the concerts there at the gazebo, and then keep the vendors across the street, that might work.
Well, I can do that easily enough.
Yeah. So would that work, Jim? That's where I was headed.
I can do that, but then we, they're only, I even forget the number I have here, but I have 23 vendors as it's set up now on here and here. So we can easily move this group over here. But then I have the problem with where do I do with the rest of them? So we have the waterfront district, so I can put an unlimited number there, but we do have the potential problem with weather problems and mud and everything.
Have you considered the figure 8 in Talleyrand in the annex?
That's really out of the way. Who's going to go over there, and how are they going to get there? They're going to cross a bridge.
Yeah,
Although the new walkway should be open.
That's true. So now we got two narrow bridges.
I agree with you. It was just so bad last year. I would never hold another market on that ground. And we're not.
No, I agree too. The other thought I had is you could have parking over in that area, but I don't think we can put a show over there because it's too far away from the rest of the activities.
I know that you're under like an unaskable solution. There's no great one. But if you do end up using the waterfront, just try to think of a place where you can have a backup, because it's just such a terrible plot.
Yeah, well, what we could do is use East High Street for some of those vendors.
East High?
West High,
Where does West High start?
the courthouse.
Courthouse?
Okay, so it'd be West High above Water Street, between
So what
between
happens,
Water Street and Spring.
what happens, Jim, if it snows and you're on the street?
Well, if it snows, it's the same. Well, I mean, it's a bad problem for everybody. It's a winter market.
So why I'm asking the question is, what's the difference if it snows and you're at Talleyrand or you're on the streets?
If it snows,
We have a problem with snow removal in the areas that are not on the street, and on the street, the borough is supposed to take care of that.
the first year that we did the winter market, the ground was frozen solid. It was a beautiful night. It was a high of 28 all day, and the ground was frozen. So even though it snowed, it was fine. The second winter market was 46 degrees and it rained forever. And
Right.
that's when that was just a swamp in there. So if it snowed, you're actually in better shape to use the waterfront because the ground will be frozen.
That's right.
And that's not necessarily.
I don't have an answer for all this.
Jim, could you show us the first slide you have there, the waterfront where it says 34 booths? Yeah. So if you were to
that goes that far in.
Right. But right now you've got the borough sidewalk, and then along Dunlap Street is the brick sidewalk that goes all the way down to the other end.
Right.
If you were to put the vendors on the grass right up against the sidewalk, there's not a whole lot of it's not foot traffic on the grass then. It's just the vendors set up on the grass, and you would have the open area of Dunlap Street plus that brick sidewalk for people to move around on. And you could spread your vendors out.
We could. It's just a lot. You're ungrouping the vendors. And
right.
I would not want to be the last person down at Gamble Mill on the vendor side. I mean,
well, that's where you put Scott's pulled pork, down at the other end of the line, and that'll get them down there.
That's a good idea.
I know it's a challenge. I'm just trying to think of a way to keep people on a hard surface, but still be able to set up your vendors.
Well, that's a good idea. We can easily do that. I think that we would sort of limit it to about 35 vendors at the most. And
yeah,
I don't think we should probably have more than that. And I know I'm going to get 100 applications. So,
but I think keeping the number of vendors in the show to a minimum will help keep, because they're going to count as part of the 250 limit.
And they usually have 2 people. So that's 70 people already. And
well, the other problem that I guess I didn't mention yet is that these are 10 by 10 tents.
Right.
And that vendors do not want to have a single 10-foot table at the edge of the tent. they have a lot of product and they want people to come in. So I would recommend to them that they limit the number of people in there, but it's still risky regardless.
You can, a 10 by 10 tent, you can only have one person in there at a time.
Right. Maybe two if they're married.
Randy, you have something?
Yeah, you brought up a good point, because a lot of times vendors bring more than one person, which is again going to add to that 125. The other question was, do any of the vendors expect electricity provided by your group?
Well, that's an argument for keeping some of the vendors on High Street because we can get it from the telephone poles there, and there are some telephone poles in the park where we might be able to get it, but they're not close to the to Dunlap Street. So if we got vendors who require electricity, then we would put them in an area where they can get electricity. So if we have some vendors along High Street there, we can get electricity to them fairly easily. And those who don't need it. The other one is the heat. And I think Sally has been looking at trying to get heaters. If we have them grouped, we can heat an area. But if we have them stretched out forever, it's going to be hard. So I've made a recommendation that it could be to bring a propane heater and not an electric heater, but propane heater if they feel they need some extra heat.
Jim, the only thing about using the lamp posts as a source for electricity is that they're all going to be decorated with the garland and the lights and everything else. So those receptacles are going to be already in use, the ones on the lamp posts.
That's the only source of electricity.
There is a telephone pole near the Gamble Mill that we discussed with Ralph and Don. If we did another winter market, that they could drop a line down from that, but that's all the way down there.
Yeah, we got a 300-foot extension cord.
There might be another pole about halfway down that walkway. I'm not sure. There was something there, but I don't know what's on it, if anything, that you're able to plug into.
Unfortunately, the maps that you can get online have it during the reconstruction stage and they're not up to date at all. So I can't tell where the telephone poles are there, but I can walk down and get some, of course.
When we met with Sally last week, her numbers were saying 60 to 65 vendors. If you're bringing it down to 30, that's even less. Because even if there's two people in there, that's at least 60 people.
So that 60 to 65 vendors was if we were up and running.
All these are theoretical numbers. We can have as many vendors as we want to have. The less we have, the more I'm going to be disliked. But no problem. I'm used to that. I'm retired.
Let me ask a general question. It looks like we don't really have much issues with the rest of this plan. Do you want to separate this out and have a motion to include everything except the arts and crafts fair and then deal with that separately?
My only other problem is that I need to give these guys time to put it into their schedule. And if I sort of told them that by the end of September, I would be notifying them. I can now send out something that says we don't know yet.
No, what I'm saying is that we could go ahead and make a motion to handle the rest of it. And then have a second motion to say whether this is a go or not and fix the details. I'm just trying to move things along, otherwise we're going to be here until midnight.
Right.
I have one
question. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can, Sally.
Okay. Sorry, I had a horrible time getting in. I was on and then I was off. So.
Go ahead.
Well, I think that's a good idea because we can look at this and like Jim said, we need to let these people know as soon as possible, though.
That's what I would like, yes.
Jim, this is Doug. What would be ideal for you? What would you, if you're king of the land, what would you wish for here? What would be ideal for this event?
What I think is ideal is not to
Yeah.
have it, but that's,
No, in terms of accommodating this event, what's ideal? So we can go from there.
well, ideal would be to keep it back up on High Street and up in Spring, and that would be ideal because
Okay,
it's,
so if you did that, how many vendors would you want to set up there? 50?
Well, and certainly no more than 50. I don't think we can handle that many as far as the parking goes and
The
everything.
reason I asked the question is if you give us an idea of how many vendors, then we could sort of figure out how much street closings you would need. If it would be ideal to put it in on the streets. I'm trying to figure out what's best for you and what's best for the event. And if you're figuring 40 vendors, then how much street space do we need to close?
Look, I would say the west side of Allegheny Street from Pike Alley to the courthouse, then down High Street to Spring Street. And then one layer on Allegheny Street from High Street down to Cherry Lane. And
Okay.
that would give me about 35 maybe vendors at the most.
Okay. So for us as council members, what's our objection to that? I was in support of moving it to the park to begin with, but I'm trying to speed this along and help the organization out. And if it
My
means,
concern is the public gathering in downtown because we're going to have other events.
okay,
And I seriously think that if it is on the street on Allegheny, between the points that Jim just mentioned and all the way down to Water Street, we will have more than 250 people, and then we will have to shut it down. And then, Jim is going to really be, have a bad thing on his back.
Well, the 250
Well,
really,
we all will.
Yeah.
the 250 people, I mean, I'm not sure what that means. Does that mean in a gathering in a limited space outside? Because I mean, we can put more than 250 people in downtown Bellefonte and not have anyone within social distancing problems. So I mean, I don't understand the 250. It's for an event, but it doesn't really describe what the circumstances of the event are.
What if you did Howard Street and Spring? It's
Howard
flat,
Street.
near the post office and library. Go from Howard down to Spring, make a left, and go to Spring down to High. It's relatively flat. It's close, but it's not far away.
And it keeps it away from the carriages. It keeps it away from the concerts, and it keeps it away from the courthouse.
And it keeps away from anybody who's attending the event, pretty much. I mean,
We had 1,500 people walk down to the waterfront last year.
I don't think it's going to
People will
affect
walk.
people. Yeah, I agree. I agree, Melissa. I don't think it's going to hurt anything. I think that's a good solution.
In previous years, people went over to the elementary school, which was very much out of the way.
Right.
well, that brings up another point. There's another area that's
Well, I can certainly set it up. I don't think it's ideal because it's just,
right.
it's not going to quite have the foot traffic. And
Yeah.
people are going to be reluctant to come anyway because of COVID. So, I mean, I don't think we're going to get the kind of traffic that we've had in the past.
No, and I like I said in our last meeting, and Jim wasn't there, I'm not going to do the outside. We aren't even going to have. We're not going to have a guide. We're going to have just a small brochure, like a trifold or a quadfold, that will get out to local community. I'll do some local advertising, very little other, and so I'm trying to keep this as much to the locals as possible. That doesn't mean there won't be people that normally come anyway from out of town. But especially if they know we're having it.
Well, I'll do what
And
you,
Jim, I think what Melissa said is good, but I also, from Lynn Street up through Allegheny Street's another end, because they do walk down to that was what I thought we would do, was put them on that end. That's why I asked for the closure there, because they walk down to the elementary school anyway the last few years. So it wouldn't be that much different.
so where are you suggesting I put them, from Howard to Lynn?
Yeah, Howard to Lynn.
Well, you guys tell me what to do. I'll do it. I mean, this is
Either Howard to Lynn or what Melissa, either Howard to Lynn or what Melissa.
Yeah.
Can we?
The advantage of Howard to Lynn is it's flat the whole way, and the
Right.
disadvantage is
See, that's what I thought too.
Spring Street is downhill from
Yeah, it is.
Howard to Allegheny. So
Is there, Jim, Sally, Jim, is there any possibility of using the Aikens parking lot if you would choose to go from Howard to Lynn for your entertainment? Maybe Mr. Aikens, I feel sure he would actually offer that space to you if you ask him.
well, that's not a bad idea. I don't mind that.
That's not a bad idea either.
Doug, we were trying to keep the concerts separate to some extent, separate from the arts and crafts fair, so that both of them could have a separate number towards that 250 person gathering. If what I hear,
that would sort of be separate. It would be a separate area that you actually could control the amount of people that go in there.
So we could do a lot.
But
Where are we going to close Allegheny Street?
I was thinking that you suggested from Cherry Lane to I guess to Pike Alley.
That's what I suggested, but I mean,
Yeah.
if we put them on Allegheny Street from Howard
to Lynn,
well, even
I
to
think Lynn's pretty far.
Lamb.
Lamb would be reasonable.
Howard to Lamb
There you
and
go.
up Howard to Spring, or using the parking lot would be fine too. So, and we could do it down Allegheny Street into the parking lot, and then a little further down Allegheny Street, and I can probably get about 30 vendors in there.
Deb, let me give a suggestion so we can move this along. It looks like we don't exactly have a place to do this. And Jim is saying that 35 vendors. Maybe what we could do is pass a motion for the whole thing and then have a separate motion for conditional approval, working with the streets committee to say that he can have X number of vendors wherever it works best, so that we keep the grouping down. That way we can move forward.
Okay, you had suggested a motion for me to make that covers everything else.
Yeah.
So I'll make a motion to conditionally approve all of the separate events associated with Victorian Christmas on December 11th and 12th, 2020, to follow COVID-19 guidelines from the PA Department of Health and as agreed to in the Streets Committee meeting. The opening ceremonies at the courthouse, teas in the bed and breakfast throughout town, carriage rides emanating off South Allegheny Street and circling the block with fire police assistance, Dickens Troop walkabout and entertaining around town, Santa house set up at the courthouse with COVID-19 masking. And I understand that there will be no one in the Santa house with Santa. They will all be outside with pictures, one family at a time with Santa Claus. Concerts as outlined on the courthouse lawn and Talleyrand Park gazebo with social distancing markers, decorating downtown with greenery on Allegheny Street and West High Street to Talleyrand Park, to be put up November 21st and remaining throughout the end of the year. And if they're, yeah,
There was, what about the fire police availability, the liability, and
right, the closure. That's arts and crafts. If fire police patrols for carriage rides and fare are not available, then Victorian Christmas would need to arrange payment for regular police overtime as needed, and notice of liability insurance with the borough named on the insurance plan for this event needs to be
You
presented
should already have that
needs to be provided to the borough if not already on file.
on file. Should be already on file.
Okay. So
You get all that, Jim? Jim, did you get all that? Are you with
Yeah,
that?
sure.
Okay, me too.
That's everything except the arts and crafts part of it.
Send me a copy of the minutes.
Okay, so do we have a second to Deb's motion?
I'll second it.
Whedon and Prendergast? Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, so moved, that part. Deb,
Thank you.
Yeah, Deb, you want to continue with the arts and crafts and do however you want to do that?
Well, I think the arts and crafts portion of it, if it can be set up on Allegheny Street between Howard and say Burroughs, that's kind of a short section and includes the Aikens parking lot if available. And then on Howard Street from Allegheny to Spring Street.
I like that.
With all vendors being suitably distanced.
So what is that? Was 10 feet enough, you think?
If you could do 20 feet between each vendor, that would spread them out enough and give the pedestrians and the visitors enough space to.
How about 15? 20 feet, I'm not going to get very many people in
Well,
there.
Jim, what we were thinking when we were saying 20 feet, it's 20 feet on center. So you've got a center, 20 feet down, not 20 feet. Here's a 10 feet, 20 feet, 10 feet.
Okay, from center?
Yeah. And just
20 feet from center is 10 feet between booths.
Yeah.
The edges of the booths.
Right, just a helpful hint for you, when I did the arts and crafts layout, the parking spaces are approximately 20 feet long. The already marked parking spaces, that makes it easier to set things up.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
So Jim, what do you think the chances are that Mr. Akins will allow you guys to use the parking lot?
Just kept asking.
Oh, we
Well,
have to use that.
we're approving this, assuming that, I would say the chances are pretty good, but we're approving this
Yeah.
as a
I think
designated space.
I'll talk to Chip.
Yeah, I don't mind talking to him either. We'll just have to
Okay.
accommodate whoever parks in there during that time.
Yeah.
Right.
The
I
other,
don't think they park on Saturday, most of them there. I think there's a lot on Friday.
I guess
Saturday, they park.
the other thing I just forgot to mention is setup. I mean, if they can all come in at 7 o'clock in the morning and set up, they're great. But if we have them set up Friday night, which a lot of them like to do, they don't have any security.
No.
So setup is a problem too, but it's.
Well, they'll just have, I know Debbie, arts and crafts, we only let them come in the morning, right?
They set up on Thursday for the Friday and Saturday events, and those booths are up for basically 2 nights and 2.5 days.
No problem.
Right. Yeah.
There's potential problem, but it's been tolerated pretty well. Okay.
I don't know that there have been any serious problems.
No.
If they close their booths and tie them off, I think they're probably okay.
If they're secured, yes.
Yeah.
So Deb's motion is to allow arts and crafts fair between Howard and Borough Street and between Allegheny and Spring Street on Howard Street. And check with Chip Akins to use the parking lot with the 20 feet on center between vendors.
Okay. Got it.
One more question. How about the,
We need a second before we have the discussion.
okay, I'll second.
Okay, now ask your question.
Will the parking lot be open that the borough owns behind the bank and the Masons? Or is that available to the Victorian Christmas folks?
Oh, you got to have parking for people visiting.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, but so I would have the vendors park down around the elementary school as much as possible, and CVS. That's what we've done in the past. And we could actually use the elementary school playground there, that paved area, for parking for vendors.
For parking for this, yeah.
Yeah.
And I try very hard not to have any extra food vendors because I want our restaurants to do well during Victorian Christmas, and they seem to be able to handle it very well. We usually have 3 vendors. We have one cider vendor, we have Scott's Roasters, and Danny Miller with his popcorn. That's it. That's all we have. And they're right by the YMCA where the electricity is, so they're off-street parking.
Does closing West Tower Street eliminate the parking in the borough parking lot?
No.
No.
You can come through, you can come through the
Okay.
YMCA or up the alley from Allegheny Street. And then
With
turn
the
left.
vendors in the YMCA, you'll have to come down Pike.
Right.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Okay.
It's a plan.
So to speak.
Any other
It's a plan.
discussion? So the
Oh my God.
motion,
Okay.
The only
condition-
other thing I have is that we'll need to do road closure. Right?
yes, let's get this one finished and then we'll do that third
Okay.
motion.
All right.
All in favor, conditionally approve the arts and crafts fair has outlined. Say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? Okay.
Yay.
So, okay, so now we need a motion to close Allegheny Street between Howard and probably Burroughs, and well, you would have to do it down to Lynn Street because you have to be able, because people couldn't come up and they'd be stuck right in the middle of the vendors. So from
Right.
Howard to Lynn and
Well, they have Borough Street they can turn off on. We will.
I
But
don't-
no,
I-
that's too
Excuse
dangerous.
me, I don't think the state's gonna approve it unless you go to Lynn. Has to be an acceptable detour.
Yeah.
Lynn Street's usually where we cut the traffic off.
Right. Yeah.
Right, then I
Jim?
can extend the vendors a little bit too. So.
Well,
Yeah.
could I
you
make
can.
make a suggestion? Put the vendors between Howard and Burroughs, and then have the vendors parked between Burroughs and Lynn.
Good,
Yeah.
good idea.
Then they're right there.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's the only road closure, the Lynn to Howard and then Howard down Spring. That would be the only road
Right.
closures, correct? Okay, do we have that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Bosky.
Bosky, okay.
I'll second it, Prendergast.
Bosky and Prendergast. Discussion?
So,
Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The one other additional thing that we had on here was the.
Thank you
light-
very much, everybody.
Thank you, Jim. The first one's the hardest. It gets easier.
Oh, this is my
What?
10th. I don't.
what were you saying, Joanne?
You had said something about lights on the waterfront. That's moved now since we moved it back uptown.
I think we should let some down at the gazebo.
Okay.
I think
We-
that we're gonna do, I think, because the community band wants to play, and I think we'll probably have them down there because they're almost too big to spread out up on the lawn at the courthouse.
Okay.
So,
So I think
Joanne,
we'll just
are we still gonna close the Veterans Bridge, the High Street from, no?
No,
Okay. Well, it might be good to be closed for a backup if we have snow. Set the band up in the street. Just a suggestion. I'm fine with what you're doing, but if you have snow,
The lights, the borough doesn't have any lights. DBI has lights. Melissa, can you tell Sally what's happening with those lights that you have currently in Talleyrand Park and what?
I just actually emailed Debbie today.
Right.
Sally, the lights are still up in the gazebo, the trees, and the pergola. They can stay up there they can stay up there through forever. I don't care. I don't want to take them down. So if you take a look at them and tell me if they're acceptable for you, and if not, we'll take them down if they work.
no, I've already done that. I've already done that, and that would be great because it will get darker. And I think what we're going to do is probably have the band do the finale concert.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be towards evening anyway. So
That'll be perfect.
So it'll be perfect.
Great, works for me.
Thank
Good.
you.
You're very welcome. Thank you. I don't want to take them down.
By the way, they look beautiful. I love them.
Thank you. It came out really nice. We're glad that we can
It
help
did.
the community.
Yep.
Okay. So I think we've got the Victorian Christmas thing done. Anything else with it?
As much as we can.
I think so.
Okay.
I will make the changes on the plan and send you that so you have a current plan.
Okay.
Send it to me too, Sally.
Sure will.
Thanks, everyone.
Alrighty.
This is complicated.
Thank you.
And
Okay.
thanks for being willing to work with all of us to make this happen. Thank you.
All right, bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jim.
Good night.
Okay. Deb, now go back to the rest of your report.
Moving on. Moving on. A representative from LTAP met with the Streets Committee on the 29th, and in your packet is a lovely write-up of everything that we covered and his responses to them. He's got some great suggestions for ultimately some pretty low-cost things that we can do to enhance pedestrian safety in the borough. I think the Streets Committee needs to take a look at this and kind of narrow down and make a priority list of what we can do first for very little money, and take a look at the longer term projects. I don't know if anybody had a chance to read it, if there are any comments on it. If not, and the Streets Committee is having an ongoing every Thursday at noon to wrap up the parking ordinance. We're looking at changing all the red metered areas to long-term permitted parking with a tiered pricing schedules to give local residents a break. And also looking at non-passenger vehicles being parked on the streets, like trailers and RVs and storage containers, and working on the language to clean up that part of the ordinance.
Anything else?
Not right now.
I have one thing for streets, possibly.
Go ahead.
Not to extend the meeting any longer than it already will be, but I had several emails regarding flags and banners hanging from poles, telephone poles, basically, on Blanchard and what street? The other street, Beaver Street. people wanted to know if that's legal, why are we allowing it, so on and so forth.
Are these on light poles or
Yeah,
utility poles?
they're on utility poles. Well,
I don't
like,
think
what-
I don't
what-
think that's permitted.
It's not permitted as
It's
far as
not
I,
good. And we discussed it in the last meeting and nothing happened.
Yeah.
Not legal.
I've been telling people that, we'd contacted the,
Power
utilities.
companies.
the
Yeah,
power companies.
they're not our poles. It is not legal according to the sign ordinance.
But I mean, who's responsible for enforcing that?
It's a little gray, because we don't own the poles. They're not our telephone poles or our utility poles.
All right.
And, years past, we try not to get in the middle of this side or that side. So we try to stay out of that. We get calls every year about this sign or that sign, unless it's a glaring safety issue or something on our pole, we don't usually enforce anything.
All right.
We leave it up to the power company.
Okay.
has the power company been notified that these flags are on there?
My understanding is we've said to the callers, call the power company and see if they'll do anything. We've asked the caller to call instead of us calling.
Stop.
Okay. Anything else for our streets?
I don't think so. There's something on here about the application for the multimodal grant.
Yes, there was an application at the last meeting, and this is the one we talked briefly in the work session on budgeting. There is an opportunity, but it's not a free opportunity. There's a local match of 30%. The minimum project is 100,000. So, we have in our, long-term plans, expand walkways, bikeways, a lot of nice things, but I'm not sure if 2021 is the year to, explore a new project, as mentioned in the work session.
Right.
Right.
So that's a long term.
I think so, to be, that's my thoughts anyway.
So no motion this evening? Is that what I'm hearing?
No.
Okay. And we've handled the liquid fuels grant monies one already.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's all I have.
Okay. Moving on then to energy and environment. Mike?
Joanne, you skipped a whole section of us.
Okay, is Parks and Rec?
HR.
Yeah, and
Watch. This meeting is
Okay.
long enough.
It's got an hour longer.
I'm sorry, I just need something passed.
Yeah, okay.
Let's do
My
it.
notes seem to have gone all discombobulated. Go ahead with Parks, and then we'll do human resources.
I would like a motion. I would like to make a motion and have it pass to approve the invoice for Lake Homing Supply, approved in the amount of $34,942.52. This is for the pedestrian walkway bridge from one side of Talleyrand to the other.
You have a second? Eaton, okay. Okay, Habaski and Eaton. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, so moved.
That project should be done in 2 weeks pending weather.
Great.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No, nothing further.
Okay. Human resources next.
Okay, we had a human resources meeting on the 1st of October, at which time we came to, we agreed on the format, the evaluation forms for the employee reviews for the borough manager and the chief of police. Dawn should have, Dawn, I believe, sent out an email before the meeting that includes the 3 forms, the evaluation forms, and then also a Word document which is evaluated or titled process. The plan is that we're going to start an annual review process this year. Hopefully, we'll get the vote to authorize it during this meeting. But in the future, each year at this time, the council president will announce that the evaluation period is starting. The council members will be provided with a form with 10 performance topics to evaluate on a scale of 1 to 5. And then they will also have a section for narrative comments. This will be for the chief of police, or this will be done for both the chief of police and the borough manager, and all council members will complete that evaluation. Concurrent with the council members doing their evaluation, the 2 senior managers will be completing their self-evaluation and self-reports. Okay, both their self-reports and the council members' evaluations will be completed by the second council meeting in November, and they will be delivered to the council president. At that point, after that meeting, the council president, the vice president, and the pro tem as a committee will consolidate all of council's evaluations, and they will review the self-reports from the chief and the borough manager. With that information and any other sources of information they wish to access, they can talk to the mayor. They are encouraged to talk to the people that are operating the authority to see how the 2 senior managers are doing. And with that information, they will pull together a set of goals for performance goals for each employee, and also other narrative comments relative to performance achievements, any areas where work is needed. And they will compile that into a report. It's called the Performance Goals and Evaluation document. And they will report that out to council in an executive session prior to the second meeting in January. If that report is accepted by council, then that during the meeting, the subsequent council meeting, the motion will be made to authorize the committee of elected officers to proceed with the in-person interviews with the 2 senior managers. And at that point in time, that document of performance goals and evaluations will be finalized, discussed with the employee, And then that becomes part of the employee's personnel record. And next year, that becomes the foundation of the document for the next annual review of performance. So that's what we've been working on in the HR committee. And I would like to have, I would like to make a motion to initiate this as our process starting this year.
Can
Can you send that out in writing?
Pardon me?
Can you send that out in writing?
We will send
That's
the
a lot
whole
of
package
information.
to you.
Pardon?
Yeah, we'll send you the whole package. It went to, Don sent it out to all the council members.
All right, very good.
I will second your motion, Mr. Eaton.
Eaton and Johnson.
Johnson.
Discussion?
Just to be fair to everybody, and I'm gonna use myself here. I don't know, what what our manager does every day. I don't know what our chief does every day. So when we're talking about the self-evaluation, the way I've worked with these before is I would receive that self-evaluation as well as at the time I'm doing an evaluation. Even though I may have, when I had staff under me, I kept notes and I knew pretty much what was, what we wanted to talk about and what our goals should be and things like that. But in these two cases, this being new, it may not have to be something that continues next year, but I think it would be a good starting point to have that information before we just sit down and start looking at somebody's how they do their job and be unfair. I don't want it to be unfair.
Well, I don't know if we really need to do this at all because Ralph and Don are Superman anyway.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
This is very, I just throw in, this very common in our industry. It's, done every year. A lot of managers go through it. We've had it off and on different types of processes, but I want to say this looks to be professional, which is what I would want to have anybody go through. We're certainly looking forward to it. If I can learn how to do a better job or, pointers along the way, I'm happy to do that. But I'm looking forward to a very professional process.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Ralph. And I think you'll notice that we used a number of industry standard forms.
Yes.
When we pulled together the evaluation forms. So we didn't try to create anything different than what's being done in the industry. And Randy, to your point, it's one of those things that the questions we're asking are more or less how the manager interacts with council and interacts out beyond or with the public.
Okay.
How he is actually how he is running his shop is not necessarily what we're drilling down into. Okay? Because much like you, I don't have that information to be able to evaluate how he is specifically running his shop.
So we base it on what we know.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, if I
John,
might
you
add-
said, go ahead,
Sorry.
John.
It's quite, it's called a 360 evaluation. Whenever when Ralph and I would evaluate ourselves, it's pretty common in the industry as well. And when we do our 360 evaluation, actually that would be an educational purpose towards council as well. So you get to know our jobs a little better. The intricate detail of our jobs.
Right. I mean, it's one of those things that for the employees, let's say protection, I did not assume that their documents would be released, their self-reports would be released to council. It could be if the employees are comfortable with that. But I was assuming that those documents would go to the committee of elected officers for them to compile the goals and performance evaluation. I didn't want to get into a whole lot of paperwork going out to the public in something that should be, in my opinion, a fairly personal matter between the direct report and the immediate people doing the goals and performance evaluation.
Right.
It's a fine line.
Right.
Any further questions on this? Everyone comfortable?
Yep.
Okay, so if we have a motion to move forward with the senior management review process as outlined in the memo sent to you this afternoon. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, so John, start the process for us.
I think that means everybody, you've received an evaluation form. You need to do your evaluation. And the chief and Ralph, self-report time. I always loved that. I'm glad I'm retired.
This is due November 1st, is that correct?
No, the 15th.
15th.
Well, I marked it as the council meeting. I said the second council meeting.
Okay.
Do we have a report for Ralph and I to do? Are they being sent out?
We will be sending that to you.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
November 16th, not the 15th.
And so, yeah, Tom got it, but you didn't, Sean. I'm sorry.
Okay.
You're muted, Mayor.
Okay. Did you want to say something, Tom? Okay. Do you have anything else for human resources, John? I think you do.
The other one I'm going to let Ralph handle on the announcement for the job opening.
Well, just real quickly, I know it's late. Mr. Cook, Robert Cook at the treatment plant, our superintendent, has announced his retirement at the end of the year. We would like to start the process for getting somebody on board to fill that vacancy or upcoming vacancy. Mr. Cook, like his predecessor, is willing to work with us and as a consultant to to complete some of the year-end reporting that goes to DEP. But our interest is going ahead and start to advertise for that opening. I'll certainly be working with the authority that oversees the water and wastewater system as well. But we're looking for permission to start that process.
I'll make that motion to give Ralph the to start the process of posting the job opening.
I'll second it.
Go ahead.
Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, so moved.
Thank you.
Since my agenda seems to be all messed up, what's the next committee?
Safety is next.
Okay. Randy?
Okay. First, I want to start out first by saying that October is Fire Prevention Month. Just want to remind residents, we're coming into the holidays and more decorations and things going up, and the heat's starting to come on. So make sure your equipment, is in par with the load that's going to be on it, and keep your home safe. At that, then we had a committee meeting on September 30th for discussion on the mask and social distancing ordinance. And at this time, I'd like to make a motion to pull it from the table.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
There's no, a motion to pull does not have any discussion, so this goes directly to a vote. All in favor of moving it off to the table, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, go ahead. Randy.
We sent out a draft. I think one came out with some markups on it. The other one came out clean with the recommended changes. So at this time, in order to get discussion going, I'd like to make a motion that we move the ordinance, the mass social distancing ordinance, for legal counsel. So it's sent to legal counsel.
I'll second it.
Who was the second?
Prendergast.
Okay, so that's Brackbill and Prendergast. Okay, discussion?
Yeah, we're trying to cover all our bases with this revision that we did. There's a lot of things we took out of the original motion or the original ordinance. There's still some things in there that people may not like. Maybe more things in there that people do like. I know that I've questioned a couple things during our meetings that I'm not real happy with that are in there. So we kind of wanted to run through this real quickly. Did everybody get a chance to read what the revised ordinance looks like?
I can summarize what we did to make it a little bit easier for both members of council and the public. The version 1 was what we tabled. And then we were asked to take it back to the safety committee. There was an initial version that we called version 2 that was a draft based on comments from the public, as well as the detailed recommendations for revisions by Thomas Band, who's a State College police officer who lives here in Bellefonte. First of all, would like to thank Mr. Dan for his insightful comments. They were quite helpful. Then in the committee last week, we created version 3. This version 3 has presented today, includes reduced fines, eliminating the private residence regulations, adding more educational outreach, and clarifying what is meant by ADA and workplace masking accommodations, and that businesses that don't have regular public traffic only need to wear a mask when they are interacting with the public. So those were the major revisions. There are some tweaks like some must to mays and those kinds of things through there that were based on what Mr. Dan had said. Does that generally summarize it, Randy?
Yeah, it is. Plus, we added the language to, and some of the letters that we got in comments back was the authority, and so we added the language from the Disease and Prevention Control Act of 1955 that authorizes health departments and local enforcement to enforce pandemic-related regulations, and that's kind of where this ordinance falls into.
Questions?
I'm okay, or I'm good with getting the legal opinion, but I'm still not sure that you're going to get past the storm that was brewing before. And I guess the one thing when I read through it, I remember some person commenting that's like, you can't tell me I can't take a walk with my family without wearing a mask. And is there anything?
Nobody said that.
Well, is there anything in the resolution that says family members are exempt from having a mask?
Yes, I believe there is.
I don't know if it says it that directly, but the residential parts of the original ordinance have all come out. It calls to public areas. It doesn't call to homes. It doesn't call their backyards. You know, that basically all came out of the ordinance. It does talk about wearing masks, and it talks about the exceptions right underneath that. But it's all based on the current regulations set by the state government.
Yeah, but if I've got a husband and a wife and their 2 kids taking a walk in the park or going up the street,
The way it reads,
and there's no one else near them, do they have
they
to
do-
have a mask?
No, they don't.
no, the way it reads is that when you come across someone else in the public, then you need to put the mask on. But if you're just walking in the park, just like that example you gave, you don't have to have the mask on. But when you get near someone, you put the mask on.
Because the social distancing plays into that then.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I'm just there. I'm just going from some of the hyperventilated conversations that were directed at me.
Right.
You know, that's why I'm asking.
We tried to address it, to kind of get those points out of there.
People need to read the ordinance instead of just going by what they hear.
Well, that won't come to after good. You know, I'd like to see what legal has to say about it, and that's the main.
So the motion on the floor is to send this to our solicitor for review.
And do you have a second for that?
Yes, the second was by Johnson.
Okay.
No, wait a minute.
Prendergast.
Prendergast.
Okay.
Right,
Can we
Bill
vote on
Prendergast.
that?
Yes. So all in favor of sending the Division 3 to the solicitor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay. So we will send it to the solicitor. Randy, do you want to deal with the last part, which is what happens if the solicitor says go ahead with it?
Then we would start planning for a public meeting for the best we can, some type of a hybrid public meeting. You know, where some council members can join virtually, others could join in person, because we only have we're only allowed a group of 25 at this point in a building somewhere in a closed meeting, and to maintain the social distancing and require the masks. So, you know, we need to figure that out. So we're going to need some time for that. And I don't know how long it's going to be illegal. It could be a week, it could be 2 weeks. I don't know. So, but that would probably be the next step. Maybe we can start looking, and I think we'll probably be setting up a safety meeting to talk about this as far as planning that type of meeting while this is being reviewed. All it is time. And so I think we can do that.
So what I'm hearing Randy saying is that this will go to the solicitor. He will send it back based on his comments. Any changes that he recommends we would make to it. And then at the next meeting, we would vote to advertise this hybrid public meeting. However, the safety committee comes up with to create such meeting.
Correct.
Okay. Anything else on the masking ordinance? Seeing none, go ahead.
That's all I have.
Okay.
Water and sanitation.
Yeah, that's where I was headed next. Just looking to make sure. Doug?
We're having an executive session after this meeting for some legal matters with the water and sanitation. We have a virtual authority meeting scheduled for tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Do you want the riff raft is going on, of course, this week from the 5th to the 9th in the borough. Most people won't see this until tomorrow night. I think most people know about it. The other thing is the household hazardous waste collection event. Do you want me to announce that, Joanne?
You can repeat it, yep.
Okay, this year you have to pre-register, it's required. And you register at www.centercountyrecycles.org. Is that on our website, Ralph? Do you know that address?
I will
I
check.
think it is.
I believe it is, but I will check.
I think it is.
It's linked.
Linked.
Yeah, yeah. So that's for Friday, November 20th and Saturday, the 21st. But like I said, you have to pre-register to participate. I can go through the list of what to bring or not to bring, Joanne, if you want me to.
Can we just put that on the website?
It's on the recycling website. It goes through that.
Okay.
So the Center County Recycles, it lists everything that you can bring and not bring. And it tells you the hours and how to register for the event. So that's November 20th and 21st, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Friday, the 21st or 20th, and 8 to 2 p.m. on the 21st. That's a Saturday.
No, that's recycles.org.
What was that, Randy?
Recycles.org is the rest of it, yeah. But if they go to our borough website, Randy, there's a link to it there also. Let's see what else. I think that's it.
Okay. Any questions for water and sanitation? Seeing none, we'll go into energy and environmental conservation.
We had, apparently I missed a meeting for the committee, but I assume you have some notes in the report for the committee.
Don, you want to quickly go over that?
I think the meeting that we had, we just really spoke about where we are with the Penn State Student Sustainability project. We have the students that are providing us, weekly reports, and they've been asking some questions. So we've been going back and forth. I think I sent out an email today to the Energy and Environment Committee about a proposed conference call that those students are going to have with Fish and Boat. So you guys are all invited to attend. The link was in the email. And then we also talked about the meeting on October 9th at 1:30. This is in regard to our climate action plan. We got the consultant working with us now, and this is their kickoff meeting. So anyone that can make that meeting on October 9th from the Energy Committee, that would be helpful.
Would the members of the task force from the climate action plan, can they also be sent the link?
We can certainly do that.
That would be helpful.
Thank you, Don. That's all that's on there for the emergency or energy and environment.
Okay. I think that's all the committees now. We're back to having my outline not so messed up. Sorry about that. So we go to the Office of Community Affairs. Ralph?
Yeah, I'll try to make this quick. We need 2 certificates of appropriateness approved. The first one's 413 West High Street for a fence installation. The second one is 247.5 North Spring Street for retaining walls installation.
Motion to approve both?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Prendergast and Clayton. Discussion? Just for those who don't quite know where 247.5 is, if you go to the borough offices, you go to the end of the parking lot, is the house directly at the end of the parking lot. So it doesn't actually sit on Spring Street, it actually can be seen from Land Street. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Special committee reports. Doug, you want to do the CCMPO?
I think it's in your packet, the minutes or the summary of the meeting, coordinating meeting. I can go through the whole agenda, but basically the long-range transportation plan was approved. The draft calendar was approved for the 2021 calendar year budget. Strategic plan is to be worked on, identify the topics and provide input to the MPO staff. State College Area Connector project, there was no report. That's pretty much it.
Okay. Any questions for Doug? Saying none. Randy, you want to do the Safer Grant meeting?
Yeah, Dawn and I met with our Nick Capote, who is our manager of the Safer Grant. Things are starting to ramp up a little bit. During the meeting, there was discussion of Nick and Dawn getting together and working on some administrative plans to get things set and organized. I think you want to meet with Lori and maybe a couple other staff to get things set up. Dawn, you got anything else to add to that?
Just add on, Brandy, that Nick and Lori and I did meet last week. We ended up calling our administrator at FEMA. Obviously, the FEMA Go system that they have for the Safer Grant beginning in 2018 isn't really up to speed yet. So we're trying to get some changes so that we can actually execute some things. At this time, we're unable, and they're well aware of it. They've also provided an automatic 1-year extension onto all the grants because of the COVID this year.
Thanks. That's it.
Okay. Any questions? Go ahead, Doug.
Well, I don't have a question, but I did want to report on the airport authority.
Go ahead.
If Randy is finished with his report. Well, you know, all airports or all airline traveling is suffering right now, and we are here too. But the good part is we've almost completed the airport parking lot expansion, which was badly needed. But now flights are down. But anyhow, I just wanted to report that they were painting the lines, finishing touches on the airport, the new paving at the airport. It looks great. If you drive by, take a look at it. Hopefully in the future, things will get back to normal and we'll fill the parking lot again. But that's pretty exciting to have that done. And we're looking at some other expansion projects in the future. That's my report on the airport authority.
Any questions for Doug? Seeing none. Any other special committee reports? Okay, moving on to old business.
I'll try to go down through this quickly. We are looking at or recommending changing trick or treat from the 31st to the 29th. The Spring Township surrounding us has already done it. The Center Region municipalities have already done it. We usually do align with them regardless, but this year it's really two reasons that they're trying to align together but get away from the Penn State-Ohio State football game.
I'll make the motion to change the trick-or-treating date from October 31st to October 29th from 6 to 8 p.m. With the caveat that if the light's on the lamppost or the front porch, that means residents are participating. If the light's off, that means they're not participating.
You have a second?
I'll second it.
Choose.
Whoever,
Mhm.
Prendergast.
Okay. Okay. The one question I have is that we usually have a rain date. I know that there was a bottom part of that. Are we still keeping the rain date as November 1st?
If that's what everybody else is doing, we'd like to do it. That is in the memo, November 1st.
Okay.
Do we need to amend the ordinance or the resolution or what?
We could just say follow the guidelines of the other townships and boroughs.
Yeah.
If you want to
Okay.
amend it in that direction. Is that okay with you, Madam
Yeah.
President?
Yeah, there was something I saw, and this might be helpful. It said that that they were doing October 29th with a rain date of November 1st. And if we need to cancel due to COVID, this cancellation for the trick or treating will be done the week of October 19th.
Well, let's advertise, these dates. It sounds like it's, if the motion passes, of course, but we'll have a meeting on the 19th, so we can put this on the agenda if you would like.
Okay, so if you do, it looks like there's a problem, then we could cancel at that meeting if need be.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Just remind everybody that all COVID-19 precautions need to be followed, even though we are having trick or treat.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Goes without-
Joanna.
all in favor, or is there any more discussion? Okay,
Aye.
all in favor? Aye. All opposed? So moved.
At
All
least
right.
everybody should have a mask on.
Yes.
Always in your case, Mayor.
I'll try to keep things moving here. Just a note, we did finish the revolving loan for the Gamble Mill property owners. That's in play now. Just a note that it'll be a little bit of time before we see a return, but the idea is that money will be a revolving loan. So we think that, it's very, very optimistic to have this in place. Next item, I'm going to give the lead in, but I'm going to let our council president take over. Is a draft included in the packet is a draft of our anti-discrimination ordinance. It's been going around back and forth for really several years with the Center Region municipalities all working together with Bellefonte, primarily our council president. And again, it's being reviewed by the solicitor for State College Borough. But with that introduction, would like to turn it over to our council president.
Okay, so if Mr. Williams contacted Mr. Stewart last week asking for our records, and what we sent him was the MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding between PHRC and the 3 municipalities. It's a regional MOU that provides a coordinated services between the PHRC and, should this ordinance pass, the local regional Human Relations Commission. We also told them that the 3 communities are putting together mirrored ordinances. So they started off working with the Bellefonte ordinance, and then it morphed into the Ferguson Township ordinance. So what you will see in the packet, says Ferguson, but it's the same ordinance, which is changing Ferguson to Bellefonte to State College, depending on which municipality, because we each have to pass it separately. Mr. Williams is currently reviewing it. There were also several questions that I had related to the implementation that aren't quite answered in the ordinance. We don't know, and I did not know whether it should be an ordinance or in bylaws, kind of like what Harb has. And he's supposed to review that and give us some responses back. Once we get the answers to those questions, then we will look forward to seeing where we move next based on his responses.
Joanne, if I didn't see it in the packet. You talking this packet? Because
I don't.
Actually, I'm sorry. Maybe I didn't put it in the packet, but we wanted to refresh your memory that it's out there. I think that's where we left off.
Yeah, well, we can send it out for the next package, or we can send it out after this meeting.
Because it's been a while since we even talked about
Yeah,
it.
there's been lots of changes to it and clarification, and trying to make it so clearly that the cost for each of the municipalities is reduced by how we handle the regional and working with the Memorandum of Understanding of the PHRC. And we had a lot of help from Carl Summerson, who's the senior attorney at the PHRC, in putting this together. Any other questions? Okay. Continue on then, Ralph.
Alrighty. Just a couple of notes, updates, letters that were sent to our state legislators about the solvency fee. As I mentioned here, the staff indicated that, they would consider this, the legislators, but have no formal letters in return. The driving electric vehicle week, has come and gone. I'll let our council president give the recap of that.
Okay, so there were 4 presentations sponsored by DEP and the Drive Electric PA Coalition. On Monday of last week, Don and I presented along with Lansdale, the city of Lansdale and the city of Pittsburgh, on what the benefits are. We from the small borough perspective, Lansdale from a medium-sized town, and then Pittsburgh from the big mega city. I then followed up with a meeting on Friday as a review with DEP. They told us that the Monday meeting was the second largest attendance. The other 3 were for businesses, for fleet managers, and for the general public. All 4 events were recorded and can be seen on the DEP website. So if you or the public are interested in watching what went on, go to dep.pa.gov and then search for AMPED, A-M-P-E-D, EB webinar series. The first item that shows up on that search links you to all 4 programs with the recordings. Don, do you have anything else you want to add?
Yep, that's a good summary, Joanne.
Okay. Questions? Okay, moving on.
Next item is just a note here about the Zion Road stormwater runoff. Just today, I did receive the PennDOT plans for the stormwater system. I've yet to review them, but I forwarded them down to our Public Works Director. So we'll start to review them and see if the storm drain is tied into the outlet pipe that goes into the vicinity of Parkwood Drive and Pine Circle, and try to verify that's where this water is coming from. But that's my update on that item. I have just a reminder note here that's not on the agenda. You recall we were asked to assist one of the nonprofits about hanging some purple lights on the street light posts. That work was done by our Public Works staff, and the lights are in place on High Street, basically between Allegheny and Spring. And again, it's about just domestic violence awareness, a good program, of course. So I wanted to just note that real quick. I believe that's all I have.
Anybody else have any old business? Seeing none, move on to new business.
Just a reminder, on Wednesday, October 7th, or this Wednesday, 8:30 in the morning, is the annual Bellefonte Chamber meeting. You do that virtually, of course, and you can get the link from them or let us know and we can forward you the link.
Okay.
One more item. I'm sorry.
Just a question about the Spring Township.
Yeah, I'm
Please.
sorry. I turned my page. There's a couple more old business items. I didn't see them until I turned my page. You want me to go back over them real quick?
Sure.
All right, Spring Township for 2 things. They seem to be supportive of us, going ahead and asking PennDOT about a complete stop sign coming into town from Route 144 onto Pine Street instead of the, stop unless you're going right. So I will prepare a letter and make sure they're aware of the process, but we go through PennDOT. So I intend to start that. In regard to police services, they're open to a small meeting, with maybe one of their supervisors and some staff and some of our council members, probably a committee, and some of our staff, getting together and talking about services, primarily police and that kind of thing. But they're at least open to it. And then I have a note here, the fall conference, of course, everything's virtual now. It's free, which is excellent news. And if you're interested, either let us know, we'll get you signed up, or you can sign up. And it's the week of the next council meeting, the October 19th through the 22nd, if you're interested.
Which meeting? Because you just said this meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry, the council meeting is October 19th is our council meeting. And I'm talking about the borough's conference. I don't know if I said that or not.
No, you didn't. The PSAB conference?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that. Just trying to be brief, obviously. But yeah, the borough's conference is the week of the 19th if you're interested.
Any other old business?
That's all I have under old.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
I thought we were
Thanks,
talking
Ralph.
new business. I'm sorry. I have new business.
Okay. Then we'll move on to new business. Ralph, you want to do yours?
I have one more item under new business, and that's there's a memo in the packet regarding action minutes, and Alyssa helped find the information. It's on some suggested, basically bullet point type minutes, and I think it's a good idea. I want you to take a look at it, read over it, and see what you think, and we can adjust our minutes accordingly if you're interested.
Yeah,
Look
Don,
good.
I think it's a good idea. I'm going to suggest it to the Fire Jet Committee as well as Nittany Valley as well, because I deal with some of those minutes. And
So, do we want a motion to try this out?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Brackville and Johnson's who I heard first.
Okay.
Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? So moved.
Does that mean we're going to bullet our meetings too? We're going to do bullet points on our meeting and move them along?
Yeah,
That
but
would
you
be
won't
nice.
have any more meetings after you bullet. It's like one and done.
That's kind of the drink, isn't it?
Okay, I have new business. Are we there yet, Madam
Yes,
President?
yes, now it's your turn.
Who else? We get reports from Chief Weaver. We get reports from Center Region Code. What report I don't get is I've been getting many calls, and it might be because of the COVID and little activity, but many calls about nuisance ordinance violations. And I then call our borough manager or assistant manager, then they get in touch with the nuisance ordinance code person. He reports back, blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm wondering if council would agree to have a ordinance code report monthly. What's been, because we drive around town, walk around town, and we see these violations, and we don't know if they've been addressed. The only way we can track that is through our borough manager or assistant manager or the ordinance code person. So what I would like to propose is we get at least a bi-monthly report. I would like to see a monthly report of who's been cited and what actions have been taken with these nuisance codes around the borough. I've been getting many calls from all wards in regard to weeds, buildings collapsing, you name it, stuff on the porch.
Dog poop on the sidewalk.
So Doug, are you making
I'd
a
like to
motion?
see.
Are you making a motion?
I will make a motion that we ask our borough nuisance code person to supply council with a monthly report of, what do I call them? Violations or possible violations or citations. Is that the right word? That have been issued? Ralph, what would I call that?
Well, basically a status report. Letters went out, warnings, citations, a whole 9 yards related to nuisance codes.
Yeah, we have a couple consistent violators in the borough, and neighbors get angry and they want to know the actions that are being taken. And I think we need to be able to supply our residents with that information when asked.
I agree.
I just wanted to add, you mentioned a couple of things. One was like roofs falling in or porches. Those types of things aren't taken care of by the nuisance enforcement officer. That would be code administration. You're talking nuisance, you're talking basically snow removal, weeds, overgrowth, things like that.
Abandoned vehicles, where would they be? Abandoned vehicles on unordained property, where would that be?
Nuisance.
It gets into there. That's a tricky situation, and I sometimes have to ask Sean or the chief, because I think if they're on the street, it's the police. If it's in someone's yard and it's not registered, then it falls under the nuisance code enforcement officer.
Mm-hmm. That's
Okay,
all I
we
have.
have a motion. I need a second.
I'll second
second.
that.
Walker, okay, Johnson and Walker. Discussion?
I think it's a good idea, and I would just add, we'll like to plan for the second meeting of the month. That's usually when we have the other reports. So that's what we'll aim for.
Okay. I would like to have the status report related to types of issues, what actions, but I would prefer for liability issues not to put people's names into this.
Well, we
I
can
don't
put
have-
addresses. We need to know where these, where the violations are occurring.
Addresses,
Yeah, why not?
address.
Are you thinking addresses? I mean,
Yeah, I
what-
think addresses would be fine, but I don't want to say Miss Smith and Dan Jones are nasty people.
It'll be address and the violation and
Yes,
what
that's-
action was taken.
I would
Yeah,
form
Perfect.
it after
That's
the,
perfect, perfect.
Yeah,
I would form it after the agenda type information where your bullet points of, whatever the nuisance was. I mean, it was.
Yeah.
You have grass.
So-
you have-
so if it's
different-
weeds, it would say weeds. If it's abandoned vehicles, it would say abandoned vehicles. So we know generally what we're talking about.
Okay.
And
Sounds good.
And then if the public thinks that the junk on the porch, which is a codes violation, and they call about that, you can refer them to codes enforcement and say that that is not a nuisance enforcement report issue. Does that make sense?
I think it depends if it's a rental property or not, to be honest with you.
Okay.
If it's a rental property, it falls under that set of, the center region, because that's who permits those and does the follow-up inspections. If it's a homeowner occupied.
It's still center region for home occupied, Ralph. That's that ordinance change that we recently made.
All right, well, I wasn't sure about that, but both go through center region is what you're saying.
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay.
So what might be helpful is, at least in the initial report, if we're going to do this, is to put the types of violations that come under the nuisance ordinance in summary bullet pointed. So it'd say grass, weeds, that sort of thing, so that when people see it, they know that that's the kinds of issues we're talking about and not some of these other issues. And then, go ahead, Doug.
I'd just like to make it at least complicated as possible. And
Right, that's why I'm saying do it one time so we have that information.
We'll get it started. If we have to adjust it, we can.
Sure, that's perfect, Don.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, Doug. I think this is a good idea. Any other new business? Any other public comment?
Just a reminder, we have the executive session after this council meeting.
Thank
And
you.
are we staying on this site, Ralph? Is that?
Yes, as soon as everybody gets off, or I'll try to get them all.
Seeing no public comment, motion to adjourn?
Removed. Bracco.
Seconded, Prendergast.
Fractal, Prendergast? Seeing no objection, we are adjourned at 10:18 p.m.
Thank you.
All right, everybody.
Good night. Thank you
Sure.
all.
Night, Sean.
Night, Sean.
Right.
Just 2 seconds here. We'll see.